as long as we make the show. We can be the best or we can be the worst. So we can be the best thing you ever heard. With the motor singing and the grandstands ringing, it's hard to put it all in words. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wild, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do. Out on the dirt ovals we play, life in the bright lights with no shade. So letting her go, letting her rip, letting her fly, tossing her in sideways, living the life, letting her ride, outside winning or die. Cross her up on the cushion, crossing the line, cause some drama and some bullshit they didn't like. And if they don't like the move, then we're ready to fly. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wild, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do. This is how we roll. This is how we do. It's not for everybody but the chosen few. And we pray, cause we know that they might not ever come back. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wild, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today. Oh, the lights are off. The lights are right off. Even though we do have the sign lit up in the background, we got this new camera. I know y'all we talked about that a few days ago before we went to the Dome. Had a great time in the Dome, as always. I mean, it's one of the best events, and best shows in motorsports. I think that's my opinion. But regardless, yeah, the sign is lit up. Apparently, it looks all great. Impact signs, awnings, and wraps if you want to get things done in the sign industry. But we have a special guest today. I can't believe it's happening. I'm already giddy offline. I can't believe we got you. To me, it's a bigger interview than Kyle Larson or Tiger Woods. I feel like that we're dealing with the guy in that degree here. But it is Lance Dewease on the line, ladies and gentlemen. I can't believe it. Lance, funny enough, we just got back from the Dome, and I made that post of the Dome video, the old Dome race down there in Tampa that the Outlaws didn't get paid, and you made a comment on there. I feel like that's how we're even to this point. But it is interesting to think about. You actually raced that Dome. That is kind of crazy in itself that you actually raced that Dome race all them years ago. That had to be a little different for all the Dome people out there in 2026, 7 or 5, you know.
It was. That Dome race was definitely different. It never was done before up to that point that I know of, as far as any large scale car stuff, especially sprint car stuff. But it wasn't a very good deal. It wasn't a very good race. It just, it kind of was they tried to do something special for in the winter, and it just didn't work out.
Well, I mean, obviously the Dome race they got going on with the late models right now is a little bit more advanced, and it's survived the era, that it has grown to. Yeah, that thing didn't really look right, but you said it was a weird way how y'all actually got paid because the dome race with the sprint cars there, kind of infamous for no one getting paid, but then I guess somehow people did get paid or car owners did get paid. That was the funny part about your story there.
Well, my story was I was driving for Walter Dyer at the time, and nobody supposedly got paid. But we always figured probably the Outlaws got taken care of by Ted. Um, but we don't know that for sure. But I'm sure they probably got taken care of a little bit. And later in that year, we were racing. I can't remember up home here. Might have been Hagerstown, somewhere with the Outlaws, and Ted Johnson and Walter Dyer was talking. Walter asked him where was his money from the dome, and Ted took out his wallet and only had like $7 or $9 in it, and he said, "This is all I have." And Walter Dyer grabbed it and said, "Okay, we'll start with that," and then took it. That's kind of how it all ended. Like for us, yeah. I mean, but just the whole thing of how that is. Like he tried to act like he didn't have no money, and Bud just took whatever he had in his pocket.
Is that how a lot of the old school racing went? You've been around for a long time. I think that's somewhat missed. You've seen the sport in different eras. I feel like, I mean, I think it's changed just by
Oh yeah.
studying it a little bit, looking at it a little bit. I feel like in some aspects back in the day, it was a little more serious or bigger in some aspects than it is today. But in other areas, it's not. Talk about that just a little bit. It is interesting. It seems like there was an old school way of doing it, but it was just as big, if not bigger, at some points back then.
Well, as far as sprint car racing, it's bigger today than it ever has been. Um, that's because of the streaming.
Okay.
Now the downside of that is probably the tracks, and I'm not saying it's all because of streaming. I'm a firm believer the streamings are not killing the racetracks. It might hurt them on certain nights, but it's not killing the racetracks. Most of the racetracks hurt themselves more so than other things. Um, but what that is, there's still tracks that are, going strong, doing well. But, we all live in a time today that, there's a lot of, how should I put this? There's a lot of battle for everybody's money in the entertainment industry. There's so much to do nowadays. And, it just gets harder and harder, for any sport, don't matter if it's NASCAR, drag racing, whatever, sprint car racing, late model racing, to keep people, coming to your events or your shows. And, with the cost of everything that has gone up, especially last, couple years since COVID, people only have so much money to spend. So it gets a little tough at times for all these promoters to
the COVID era
make ends meet and make it work.
Well, the COVID era, I feel like that's where streaming really took off. I mean, yeah, there was streaming, but COVID kind of, I don't know, I felt like it kind of developed that way to make money with no one in the stands. Even NASCAR did that. A bunch of industries had to find a business model to make money with no people being able to attend. Obviously, racing kind of, fumbled across into having some people there, and then obviously the pitting area, if you had a pit pass, you could be there, and then people would find a way to get in the pits. I mean, it's a crazy world, the sprint car industry, but I do feel like that's when streaming definitely took off to another level, and to get it to where it's at today, as far as how impactful it is on the sport in good and bad ways.
Yes, I agree 100%. I mean, let's be real here. After the Outlaws, I mean, Brad Sweet, once he seen the Outlaws could run races without nobody in the grandstands and pay the purses and all, that kind of was the start of the, I don't want to say fallout, because I really don't know what all went between him and the Outlaws and all, but that's basically the start of High Limit to me. That's where they seen, okay, we can maybe do this differently, and use the streaming to, bring the money into sport or whatever, their idea was at the time. But, that kind of is where all this split kind of started from, to me, from just somebody looking from the outside that's been around a long time, looking from the outside at what happened. You know what I mean?
Well, and I
So
think the split's
it
definitely
kind of,
different than
and
that
it shows.
USA
I mean, they're
area.
not.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been around for all the splits. The first one never went very good. The second one, everybody acts like it could have maybe lasted, but then the backer of the split passed away. So that kind of ended that one. This time is different. I mean, it's just different because it's different. With Flow being involved in it, and the streaming stuff is different. Before we didn't have none of that stuff. Even the Outlaws didn't have streaming during those other splits.
Right. It's like the revenue stream switch from butts and seats. That's not necessarily the main funder of, the sport. Now, I don't know if that's bad because you look at every other sport. We could even use the NFL as the granulous example because I do think that's the number one attended sport or most popular by far, I think, in America for sure. And, even though their stadiums are full, there's still only 100,000 people or so ish that could be at the stadium. They're not making their living on 100,000 people. They're making a living on the millions and millions that are watching. So I don't know if necessarily it's a bad thing that it's shifted to, the streaming based or the viewership model. I think that's the better way to say it is like a viewership model more so than an attendance based. But I do think, the stadiums that ain't full, it's a sign of how successful the team is. So, I mean, our team is sprint car racing, obviously, it seems like. So, the stands, the people being in the stands still is a very intricate part for it to succeed, no matter how many people are watching.
Yes. The problem with what I see with, I'm going to use both the Outlaws and High Limit, is what they are doing is not helping local racetracks. Because our local racetracks can't live off the streaming of what Flow pays them or Dirt Vision's agreements are. I have a pretty good idea what some of our tracks get. There's no way they could race without people coming and showing up.
Right.
So, the Outlaws and the High Limit, they can, sell their marketing rights to people and, bring that money in. But you also need to have racetracks to survive for them to have places to go race at. And that's the only thing that bugs me a little bit. I don't think the sport is as good as some people think it is.
Well, and you're in one of the best areas for attendance. I mean, PA, in my opinion, especially when you talk about just sprint cars, because I think Ohio, Wisconsin's pretty close, but those areas are kind of mixed up with the fendered racing. And not saying y'all don't get good crowds for fendered racing, y'all get good, okay crowds, but sprint cars is what makes that area tick. So you're in one of the better areas of the country as far as attendance is concerned. I mean, Knoxville's lucky to get 3,000 or 4,000 on a weekly basis, maybe. Sometimes it looks empty. I mean, but y'all are I feel like you're in one of the better areas. So for you to say that's definitely impactful.
Well, yeah, it's Lincoln's crowds have not been very good, I don't think, the last couple of years. Last year, Port Royal's crowds weren't like they were the year before. The Grove crowds have been off. And there's a lot of variables in that. It's just not, it's variables outside of racing. The inflation rate that we've had for the last 4 years, at the rate it's gone up, and people just don't have the extra money. So, locally, what happens now is, and this is probably one of the reasons of the new series that we want to talk about a little bit then, but a regular show is hard to get people to come out to. And, it depends on how the tracks are set up and, what their theory are on some of this stuff is, cut back on regular shows and hopefully you can hit home runs with your big shows.
Well, and you're lucky to have somebody like even Macri with the opportunities he could have to go on the road full time. And who knows if that could be a decision in the near future. But Draws are a big deal. People that fans want to see. Dietrich, you, Mackery. There's a few guys coming up. Wagaman, I think, is getting close. Dietz is getting close. So, you need those guys to kind of stay there to get that crowd. And then, like you said, Lincoln and Port kind of being on that Saturday night situation where you may split one of those guys or two of those guys. It's hard to get the fans to show up either, especially when they could sit at home and watch it. That's the other side. You could have people go to
Yes.
Lincoln who would traditionally go to Port, but if they can watch Port on Flow, they'll just go watch Port on Flow in the grandstands.
Yeah. And that's what I mean by the streaming, the Outlaws and the High Limit, based off of the history of what they've been doing the last couple of years, they do all right with their streaming stuff. But our local tracks can't survive off the streaming. And I think that's why you see Lincoln this year going to do their own streaming. To try to offset some of this. I can tell you if I was owning a track and having a track, I would have my own streaming service. I would not have Flow. I would not have Dirt Vision. I would have my own. Because that's the only way
seems
to me
fair.
that you could offset it.
Jeremy seems pretty fair. I was going to say Jeremy seems pretty fair.
Yeah. Jeremy's deal is probably the fairest for the racetrack itself. But it's hard because with what Flow and Dirt Vision does for the annual stuff, it's hard to beat them.
Well,
as a fan,
wouldn't you also see it like if I was like Lincoln and wanted to do a streaming deal myself, I would almost try to partner with Jeremy and even if you're supplying some of the stuff, split off, figure out what percentages, because I feel like the bigger problem is going to become once you get too many of these different streaming services going, the fans are now going to not only tap out on being able to get into the grandstands, they're going to tap out on being able to buy 4 different services to watch the races too. Even though, it's considerably cheaper to buy streaming than it is to go to the events. That's no question. But once you start splitting it into 4 different payments, that's starting to make people upset too, it seems.
Yeah, it does. There's a limit to all of it. To me, where that limit is at, who knows? Everybody's different. But it's tracks have to do a better job at promoting to put people in the seats. They've gotten better in our area at canceling shows early.
Yeah.
To me, there is no reason to race if there's any amount of chance of rain.
Yeah. At that point,
no
it becomes
reason to
ego.
drag people to the race because I can tell you for a fact that I'd rather get a message on Thursday night that the Grove canceled than drive my ass to the racetrack and get rained out and drive my ass to the racetrack when I know the odds are we are not going to race.
Yeah.
And from a fan standpoint, if there's a chance of rain, any big chance of rain, they just don't show up. They just won't show up, period. And I think you've seen that this year with Lincoln, who was in our area, one of the tracks that would race no matter what, cancel a lot of shows, cancel them early because people just don't show up. If it's 67% chance of rain, even though it might not rain, the people just don't show up.
Well,
and I think all the tracks are getting better at just saying, heck, we're just canceling and being done.
Well, and something else I think that y'all have an advantage and somewhat of a disadvantage at is y'all have an advantage for having weekly 410 sprint car racing. That's a huge advantage. There's not a lot of the country that can do it. Y'all,
No.
Ohio gets away with it a little bit. I think that's because their tracks don't require a $60,000 motor to compete. That helps. West Coast does it a little bit, I think almost for the same reason, quarter miles. Then you have the Mecca here in the Midwest, Knoxville, Huset's, and they're paying astronomically well. But that's another aspect.
Yeah.
To have a 410 sprint car show on a weekly basis, that purse is not cheap. It costs a lot of money to have y'all there. And, just touch it on the streaming and everything like that. The other issue with streaming is that y'all aren't even just competing against one another, you know, versus a person going to the track versus what I mean by that, person going to the track versus a person staying home. If I could stay home, not only can I watch Lincoln or Williams Grove or or Flo or Port Royal, but if High Limits racing, if the World of Outlaws racing,
Knoxville.
all of it, I could stay at home and watch,
Yeah.
get indulged by this. I really think that this streaming versus in person deal, and this is why I continue to go, I think it's a human element of wanting to go outside. I really think that if you cut this down to the bottom of it, it's yeah, you could stay inside and get everything you want, but how much do you actually want to live and go see people and meet people and enjoy
Hmm.
actual life? I really, when you cut it all out, the business and all that, I think that's the difference. You know, because you can get it all.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and it proves because locally our big shows are basically sellouts every year. And they're
And
streamed,
maybe bigger
but
than
they're
ever
sellouts
now.
every year.
You know, maybe bigger than
Yeah.
ever now.
And, some of that is probably because of streaming. You know what I mean? That helps with that. But then the regular shows, and if there's weather questionable, that's when the people don't show up. And that's when the tracks have to get smart at canceling smart and canceling early. I know Port Royal last year, there's a couple races they ran early in the year that after the fact they wish they would have canceled. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think everybody got smarter as the year went because this year, I shouldn't say last year, but this year the weather was so bad basically from April on to May. I mean, we raced very little in April and May. And everybody was raining out. It didn't matter who it was, everybody was raining out. And that's just part of it. You get in these weather cycles that it only rains on the weekends. I mean, but it's just part of it. But the streaming's good and bad, and I just hope the tracks can figure out ways to survive and make it grow.
Well, and the other part about it is the expense. Not only are they having to try to pay more than ever, but the drivers and crews and everybody's having to spend more than ever. I mean, you got former outlaw guys in the pitting area. Those people don't come to the pitting area for free. Lance, you know this better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you know the series is good, and I've seen the critiques. It is a lengthy schedule. I do think it's the best thing that y'all could have done in that area to try to retain fans coming and that actual in-person experience. But man, the expenses are pretty crazy in today's world too. That's a part of the business model that I feel like tracks have to think about. No matter if it's you wanting to race or the guy, 35th, it's still a significant amount of money to come to these races as a team anymore.
Yeah, it is. Just everything, the cost in general in life has gone up. And it affects racing. And, just part of it, and you have to find ways to offset or, try to make it work. And, it is what it is, and it's all sports, it's all entertainment. People don't go to the movies like they used to. Even general, basketball, football, baseball, I think they're down in some aspects, but the amount of money involved in that stuff is just ridiculous. And it's just, but motorsports in general, it's an attendance-based, business to me. And, you have to do a good job at getting people in and then putting the show on and getting it over and not waste time.
Well, and I've always said we kind of need to get younger in the sport. And I think, tracks, I see BAPS doing some pretty innovative marketing. Some of the other ones, I kind of feel like they just live on their name, not being mean and saying that, some of these tracks, they think that they're so big and bad that they don't have to put out a BAPS effort, if that makes sense. I see BAPS busting it as far as promotion and trying to reach new audiences and people in Harrisburg. I mean, it's not a small city there. I mean, if you look at the population of Harrisburg, you could fill up Williams Grove 10 times. It's just about getting that population to the track.
Yeah. And there's so much for everybody's entertainment dollar nowadays. there's so much race in our area. I mean, I'm not just talking sprint car race. I'm just talking racing in general. There is so much in our area now. Between go-karts, micros, modified late model sprint cars, 360s, 305s, 358s. I mean, you just go down the list. There's so much racing going on in our area. And then the other aspects of all the entertainment dollars with, movie, sport, other sporting events, concerts. Just, I mean, there's only so much to go around. You have to do a good job at trying to attract it. And BAPS does do a good job. Colton and Scott do a great job at, trying to get, people involved and, coming out to the track. And I think it shows because his sprint car shows in general are pretty successful, I think, but they fight the same issue. If it's weather related, it's a little iffy.
Well, and they try to do Sundays, There's really not too many sports that try to compete on Saturday nights. They understand that on a Saturday night, you're going up against the concert world. You're going to, as far as youth, you're going up against the nightclub world, the bars, the clubs, and all that. I mean, it's hard to beat women. I mean, which is what sells that industry. You're going up against a lot on Fridays and Saturday nights. You're going up against normal culture. NFL don't really even do that. It's tough.
Yeah, it is. It's just tough, but it's just, everybody's fighting for the same dollar. I mean, so.
Right. Well, fight for the same dollar. I think that is why this series came along. What is your thoughts on this series? Obviously, intricate schedule. It's been talked a lot about a lot. I told Jeremy Elliott he needs to get royalties off of this. But what because he's been talking about this idea for a long time. What do you think of this series? Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to compete in all of them, or I mean, you're a driver, you're a professional driver. I don't know. I mean,
but but I've been running limited schedules for the last 8 years. I like the idea behind it. I do like that.
That's a new T-shirt for you. Limited time schedule, full time ass whoopings or something. That's good. That's good. All right, I like this.
But there's too many races to me. I heard the rumors of the amount of races before it ever was announced, and I'm just going to give you, when I drove the 69K, we probably averaged somewhere between 40 and 50 races a year. Okay, last 2 years I've averaged low 40s. Now, last year, the weather probably cost you 10 to 15. You know what I mean? That we would have ran. So you take this series when they were talking about 47 races, and then I just add my outlaw shows and high limit shows at the Grove and Port. You're 61 races. Just between those three items.
That's a lot. That's almost a high limit number, right? I think high limit 60 something.
Yeah. And, Jeremy had that list of, Dietrich, Brock, Searfoss, and Anthony were the three that ran the most races in the country. I think Dietrich and Brock were in the 80s and Anthony was a high 70. Okay. After that, locally, there was a lot of teams barely got to 50. So we have 61 between Outlaws, High Limit, and this series. Now, what I wasn't expecting when they announced the series, the races that are part of it, I didn't expect to be part of it, like our Speed Week.
Right.
And some other shows at the end of the year that I really didn't expect to be part of it. You know what I'm saying? So that helps in a little aspect, but then there's not a lot of teams run the whole Speed Week deal. I'd have to go back and look, but I bet you there's not, 7 or 8 teams that ran every single race of Speed Week.
Right.
Maybe 10 max.
Well, you got the 3 Mulligan races, but I believe that's to help somebody who wants to run Knoxville, because I think they actually race on top of Knoxville, correct? The Nationals.
They race on top of Knoxville for sure. I don't know about Eldora. I have to look. I
think that's a no. Pretty sure that's a no.
I think somebody else told me that was no. I just know that what Knoxville weekend is, so I knew that one was being raced against. Um, but you have guys like Danny that goes out Ohio Speed Week because he has commitments and he likes going there. Anthony will go do whatever he does, travel wise. Chase Dietz has some commitments, with the Silver Crown stuff, and Eldora, Knoxville, he wants to run it again. And then there's races, at some tracks that there's guys not going to go to those tracks. So it depends on where they fall in the schedule. Certain tracks that are not normally in our area might be hurting for cars if they're late in the season schedules. You know what I mean?
Right. And then you're also, it seems like you're halfway in playing. Who do you think's going to run a full season's worth, even with the 3 mulligans?
I know of supposedly three teams that are committed to all of it, supposedly. I'd rather not say their names because I don't know this for a fact. You know what I mean? But even them, with those 3 mulligans, they're going to pick and choose certain tracks they don't want to go race at. And it's not going to be Williams Grove, Port Royal, Lincoln. You see what I'm saying?
Well, it's a pretty significant, for y'all, I feel like it is a pretty significant points payout. So you would think that, some of those positions would matter. It's $50,000 to win the championship. That's not chump change, and I still believe y'all are still going to have track championships, I believe. I don't know if that's all went away. But
no, I don't think so.
No, so
they
track
went away.
Championships are done. It's only this.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Now the Speed Week still has its own. From my understanding, I don't know for sure, but from my understanding, Williams Grove, Port Royal, and Lincoln will not have no track championships themselves. You know what I mean? You have this series now that I think that's where the money's going to.
And you mean as far as money's going to, like, sponsorship wise? Hello. In and out of a truck or something? Yeah.
No, I got connected. I'm going to assume my wife's pulling in the driveway. I'm going to assume it connected to the vehicle.
Oh,
because I'm sitting in the chair in the living room. So
don't tell her the Chaz is on the phone. She'll make it cut it off. But no, you were saying you think the sponsorship dollars are going to them now. The series overall. Is that what you're implying?
From my understanding, from what rumor is, I don't know for sure, that none of our regular tracks will have point series now.
Okay.
Just this PA series, and then the Speed Week still has its own point fund.
Okay.
But like the Grove won't have a point title, Port Royal won't have a point title, and Lincoln won't have a point title. Is what I'm being told. I don't know that for a fact. I didn't hear. There's no announcement either way of that.
Do you see that as good as bad or bad? I feel like for the ego side of it, that's good, right? Because I feel like there's always this question, who's the best of PA, blah, 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 the ego side, which our sport's very egotistically based. It just is. But then there's the negative to it as to, Williams Grove track champion used to matter, and now it no longer exists. That's probably the negative, right?
I might not be the right person to be asking that question because I've won them enough that I'm not interested in racing for points on a weekly basis.
Right.
And none of them pay enough. The Grove paid the best, but Port and Lincoln's track championship pay wasn't really worth you worrying about being there every week and skipping maybe a big race at some other track, on that night.
Right. Well, 20-year-old you probably had a preference. That's all I'm saying, 20, 30-year-old you probably wanted that,
Yeah. But, it's important to, somebody that hasn't won one or, stuff like that. But that, as far as I know, they're, from the rumor I heard, they won't have their own track series titles. It'll just be the PA series title. But I could be wrong.
And so, what do you think about this
Yeah,
PA
we're still.
series, short term and long term? Is it good, bad? It sounds like you're in between.
The idea is good. I thought a 30 race number would have been better than 47
Okay.
because of all the other races that we do race in here.
Do
You know
you,
what I mean?
do you think it's just trying to fit everyone in and, trying to make sure that there's not a weekend where you have Port versus Lincoln and the fans are split and the cars are split? Do you think it's like, yeah, we could have probably did 30 to soft open, but let's just go all in? Do you think that it's more because this is an all in schedule? I mean, it went from there's no series in PA to now you basically have a series that just takes over the area. Like it better work,
Yeah,
because it's the last option now.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess yet I still haven't seen Lincoln's true schedule and Port's true schedule. I have the series races. But I have not seen. Well, I think Port. Yeah, Port has their schedule. I have their schedule. I don't have Lincoln's schedule or the Grove schedule. So my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, is they're not supposed to race against each other in the series deal.
Right.
But then somebody just told me today that they are on certain ones, which then don't make sense why we did the series. You know what I mean?
Right. That would
But I don't know for
instantly
sure.
kill the idea, right? That's like
Yeah,
even if it's going to Bedford or Clinton County or whatever, it's supposed to kind of force if you want to run sprint cars this week. Lincoln will have a late model show or something, and the sprint cars, if you want to run them, go to Clinton. But if you got say they're going to Clinton County or Bedford or something, and then you're scheduled against it, that is completely destroying the idea, in my opinion.
yeah. Well, I don't like none of them tracks are scheduled against anything.
Okay.
Where it would basically be Port and Lincoln. I know Jerry Parrish is the guy behind this, and I think he's hoping this helps with Lincoln's crowds and their stuff. And it would be dumb for them to do the series and have 10 races at his racetrack and Port have 9 at theirs, and they race against each other on some of these. It would just be dumb. That's not benefiting either one. So I'm hoping, where the rumor is that they don't race against each other, that they don't. And, they get some cars from each track to support the other track, and they get fans from each track to support the other track.
Why do you think this Port Lincoln thing is even a thing? I mean, I know Port's made some huge strides over the last 15 years to become what it is today.
Oh, yeah, huge strides.
Exactly, and I'm sure in that stride period or prior to that stride, that Lincoln was kind of like the top dog. I'm just assuming here, but Lincoln was the place to be until Port built theirself to the area or the level that it is now. Is that
I,
like what's the
I
deal
would
there?
agree at one. I would agree at one point on Saturday night, Lincoln was the better track facility ran wise. At one point,
Well, they had an original
now it's
outlaw
not.
date, right? Like they have history
Yeah,
there.
yeah, but I mean, Port. Trust me, I grew up racing Port for 41 years. It's Port went from being basically all but shut down to me, it's the best facility in our area.
Right, and that's what I mean by
It
the
puts on
last
the best
15 years.
racing.
It's went from that to
Yes,
what we know.
yes, and and Lincoln has kind of fell behind some. I mean, in that regard, and I think Jerry's trying to find ways to make it relevant and do good things. And what's good, one thing I'll say about the series, no matter what happens with it, is they actually got everybody in the room and talked
Egos to the
about
side. Egos to the side.
yeah. And I heard different rumors about different things that with it. Now I ain't going to talk about that, but it at least all the racetracks got in a room and discussed, and they come out with something. 10 years ago that would have never happened. That would have never happened 10 years ago.
Right.
So at least like that, and that's I think I think everybody locally likes the idea of it. I think most of the race teams are the same as me. 47 with everything else we do, it's a good bit of races.
Well,
You know
and,
what I mean?
I think what you're also saying is like the greatest thing is they put their egos to the side to discuss this and get to this point of even having it. But I also think what you're saying is like, let's keep that in mind, going forward. Like, let's still
Yeah.
work together in a futuristic way. Because I agree, like, if you have a PA series race at Port and then Lincoln still races, I mean, what was the point to begin with? That
Yeah,
has
what's
to
the
be
point?
figured out.
Yeah. So, like I said, the idea is good. I think a little less races would have been good. You know what I mean? Because just we do have so much racing in here. So, we talked about that. I said 61 races, right? Between the series and the Outlaws and High Limit.
Hmm?
That's not counting, like, for me, that wasn't counting the High Limit race at Grandview, which is a midweek show. That wasn't counting the BAPS Outlaw show, which is a midweek race. And that's not counting the other BAPS shows that they will have once they announce their schedule.
So you're saying now you could stay in PA and race basically 75 dates if you want.
Well, we always could. I mean, we always could. You know what I mean? We always did have a lot of races.
But
you know
just
what I'm saying?
combining all the series events, the PA series plus the other series mainstays, 75 solid racing nights right now. About.
Yes.
Okay.
So I can tell you right now in this, I don't have Lincoln's schedule or the Grove schedule on this. So let me tell you here. I can tell you real quick.
Well, you got a little notepad.
97
I know
minus
you. I know you
24.
older racers. You got a little notepad with everything written down. I feel like you
No,
got.
actually, I know I have Google Sheets.
Yeah,
I'm
you got
modernized. I
Google
might be old, but
Sheets.
I'm modernized.
Okay.
I got a
Okay.
Google Sheet. So 97 minus 24. What's that?
97 minus 24 is 73. I think. No. Yeah. Am I right? No.
That's why I have on. That's why I have on schedules right now.
Is 97 minus
And I don't
24
have
73? Hey, I'm pretty good at math. I might be right.
Yeah,
actually.
73.
Okay,
Yep.
Cool.
73. I don't have all the Grove shows on the schedule. I don't have all Lincoln shows on the schedule. I don't have whatever BAP shows they might add yet. So it'd be well into the mid 80s probably that you could run
As a local PA sprint car team.
As a local PA, yes.
That's insane. Well, some people would see that as good. Hey, I could tell you right now, there's people in the Midwest that are like, you're so lucky, to be able to do that. I mean, you're so lucky to be able to stay in that. This is why some people relocate to PA. Racing is a dream.
Yeah.
It's a business as well. What's the 97 number? Is that available race dates? I'm curious. What is that for?
No, I have a list on my Google Sheet. I just go into the same one from the previous year and just start changing the dates as they announce the shows.
Okay. So what
see what I'm saying?
What is 97?
So,
what?
That's where I'm at right now. But like 1 to 24 is old dates from this year yet that I didn't adjust the dates for yet to next year.
Wow.
So that's why I started. My 26 scheduling starts at road 24 and goes to 97.
Wow. And what do you think?
And that
go ahead. Sorry.
And that don't count no traveling of anything of any type outside of PA.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of traveling, what do you think of their travels? Somebody in the comments already said, how does Lance run so good at Bedford? I think Bedford, I haven't been there personally. Looks like a nice area. It's a decent drive. I know that for the Central PA teams. I'm a big fan of Path Valley. I'm a short track guy. I like, getting going and slinging her in there. I like it. I mean, I think Placerville is one of the best races of the year. That's about the size of the dome, for crying out loud. What do you think of the little traveling they do? It looks like they do give a little bit to Clinton County and some other facilities that some of these guys never even been to, really. What do you think about the little traveling that
I
the schedule does
I
give,
I
and
think
tries to take fans to? I feel like that's what it's trying to do, is at
yeah,
least get them there.
I think those are the tracks that are going not do good at on drawing the cars from Central PA necessarily, a large amount, and maybe fans. I'm fortunate. Bedford's only an hour for me, roughly. Bridgeport's probably the farthest racetrack for me.
And
I'm
you got to
I'm
deal with the
fortunate I can
traffic.
be.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, well, it's just New Jersey. But Bedford for a lot of people is 2+ hours.
Yeah.
Like the Ramers, I think it would be all but 3 hours for them to get to Bedford from their place.
And that's missing traffic, probably.
Yeah, well, not too bad. It's straight out the turnpike for them. But still, it's 3 hours on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
So I think Bedford's probably that's where I think the schedule. I appreciate them adding tracks to it, and those tracks wanting to be involved. But I would like one at Bedford, maybe one at Clinton County to start. I was shocked by Bridgeport having two. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be a hard draw. You know what I mean?
Do
So
you
it's
think
going
they
really.
just want to be involved, though? Like they're willing to pay the price? Because there's sanction fee in this, I think, right? You have to pay to have one of these days.
I think so, yes, because it goes into the point fund. Well, I think I use Bridgeport as an example. I think they've done good on their end of the year deal that Donny helps promote. I think they're building that into something that's a moneymaker for them. So they're probably thinking, we do another one, hopefully we get cars come out and hopefully people turn out for it, and it could be money making for us. Bedford's same way. Bedford's a good racetrack. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just out it's stuck in the middle between us and Western PA. And Bedford and Clinton County will draw some Western PA cars too. So
well, I'm
that's
sure
a nice thing for them.
some Western PA cars will probably try to run this full thing. I mean, they get paid peanuts over there. I mean, for crying out loud.
Yeah, but it's still tough for them guys to come in, run at the Grove, run at Port, and be very competitive.
Oh, I agree.
AJ Flicks.
Yeah.
AJ Flicks is a really good racer, and he's struggled at Port the last couple of years.
Well, and there's some other teams.
He can dominate Lernerville.
There's some other teams too. I kind of joked with them. I called them the PA Posse Hood Rats, over there on Western PA side. But that was kind of a joke. But yeah, they're, like I said, they're more of Ohio style, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A little dustier tracks. You don't have to have the hammer to really perform extremely well. It does seem like you got to have the hammer to perform there in the PA series. So I definitely get that. I mean, that's almost an interesting topic there. The hammer. Motors are just insane now. I mean, you got to have a hitter to compete. You float the middle just as good as Donny Schatz, but you need a perfect track for that to work.
Well, I think just in generally more the biggest difference from when I started now racing is everybody's so equal. There's nobody got an advantage as far as when it comes to equipment. And it shows in time trials. We're hunting thousands. Not tens, thousands and hundreds of thousands. Because a tenth is huge in time trials. It takes you from a front row of the heat to a third row of the heat.
Well,
I mean, so
as much as that's in horsepower, it does seem like a wrench is more valuable than anything right now. And when I say a wrench, whether that's Davey
the whole
or
package.
Well, it does take the whole package, but it does seem like there's whether you're Davey, who I think is unbelievable, or you're Cody Jacobs or you're Ricky Warner. Look at what Ricky Warner did for Rico. Rico. I mean, he some people thought what is he going to do a few years ago? He gets hooked up with Ricky. Bam. Probably one of the greatest examples, Ryan Timms. Look at Ryan Timms. They wrote him off.
Yeah.
He gets with Shane Liebig. They click. And sometimes the crew guy can be, or the crew chief can be amazing, but sometimes it just don't click. But if you get with somebody and y'all work together and he's good on the wrenches, if you get in the right situation there, I mean, you could do Ryan Timms stuff. You know, look at what Timms' turnaround with his career is almost as big or probably bigger than Rico's switch there with Ricky.
Yeah, I would say that because Ryan's still a young kid and he's got a lot to learn yet, and also, you know, a lot to, I don't want to say prove, but, you know, see if he can sustain it for, you know, any length of time, you know, and he's going to have his up and downs just because he's young, you know, just his inexperience. And even Rico and Ricky still do. I mean, God, I mean, you look at I think it was, I don't know, it was the Gold Cup. I don't know which high limit race out in the West Coast. They had to use provisional almost every night.
Yeah, I was there at Placerville.
And then they go to
Yeah,
Skagit.
I was there. Placerville, yeah, he had to use a provisional.
Almost every night. And then he goes to Skagit and he's a dominant car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just that tight. It's just that tight that if you're off some, it just really shows up. And but no, I think the series is going to be okay. It will just be interesting to see how many people run all of it. And there's so much variables go into it because, you know, the first 5 races of this series is Port and the Grove. Well, it's in March. We could race them all. We might not get none of them in.
Right. That's true.
So it, yeah, I mean, so right away you could go from 47 to 42 before we even get a race in. Yeah, I mean, so it's just you know, it's just what it is. You know what I mean?
It depends on what the Amish gods provide, Central PA. No, I'm just kidding. That's a good point, though. You know, that run there by Rico just is kind of a side note here, or we could talk about it. I think that's the big difference between High Limit and World of Outlaws in the current state. You know, that consistency that you need to be on the Outlaw Tour. I think that's where you could still say confidently to be a World Outlaw champion, you still got to have that unbelievable elite level of at least consistency. You know, I don't think David had a stretch like Rico did. You know,
I don't know one. Like, I don't know him being bad any length of time. David, and the thing, you know, you talk about motors and all that. Well, David's engine program is very stout. I know the engine builder. But with that said, David qualifies good on any type of racetrack. And it does not matter when he goes out.
That's true.
And that just shows you the car.
Yeah.
The car is good.
Yeah.
Cody and him have that thing dialed in, figured out, and it's very impressive. And, you know, that's the difference. What he's been like for 2 years, 3 years, probably almost, but 2 years for sure. He's just consistently times good and just puts himself in the position all the time. You know, and you know, Buddy had an unbelievable year. I think Buddy was faster than David on the bull rings. But Buddy was not as good on the bigger tracks.
Well, or qualifying.
And he didn't time as well.
Yeah, he had. Yeah. I think he was number 1 in passing in heat races. But that in that aggressive driving style that he has is what helps him go from 6th to 2nd in a heat race. You know, you can't do that unless you're extremely aggressive. You can't. You know, you got to get 3 cars in one corner.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting.
But Buddy's car to me is one of the best cars on short tracks. When you just sit there and watch it, it's one of the best handling race cars on short tracks.
Well, he does well at the Grove.
He's not. Yeah, but he's not bad on big tracks. But he just don't seem like they have the speed yet that David has on the big tracks in qualifying.
Well, and it's hard to make up 3 cars in a corner on a half mile or a bigger track. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't make up ground in race conditions as fast as you can on a short track. And maybe that's attuned to what you're saying there. If you don't consistently qualify well, um, you can't make that ground up at every single facility. You may be able to make that up at some shorter at Lincoln, for instance, but you may not. You ain't gonna. It's gonna be real hard to make that up at Port or Williams Grove, for instance.
It just depends on that track. Like Port Royal, you can do it if it's slick. If it's normal slick top to bottom, if you go out in a heat race and it's 17 seconds, you can start back in a heat race and get to the front.
Well,
because it's so slick.
I kind of stumbled on myself and wanted to apologize to say Port Royal because the World of Outlaws can't go there or don't go there. How stupid do you think that is? I mean, out of sight, out of mind question though. But what do you think about that? This high limit World of Outlaws splitting tracks there. It seems like Outlaws making their hub at Williams Grove and Flow making and we should just say Dirt Vision and Flow because I feel like that's what we're talking about when we say these two entities.
Well, I think when the All Stars went under and High Limit started, they needed a presence in our area.
Oh yeah.
And if Port Royal didn't get something out of this, they are fools. Because Port Royal did not need them.
No.
Port Royal, especially like Tuscarora 50. Port Royal don't need a sanctioned body.
Even the Weichert.
For Tuscarora 50.
Even the
Weichert. Yeah. So, if Port Royal didn't get something out of it for them, and I'm sure, Brad and Larson, all of them are smart enough to know they need a presence in here, and they have it now with Port. And, the Outlaws still have their presence in here with the Grove. Actually, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not that big a deal either way to me. I mean, they both have their deals. They both, are successful in here. They both get crowds. It is what it is on that part of it. It's really hard for High Limit to get Outlaw shows at the Grove or the Port to get Outlaw shows because there's no shows left. Let's say they even wanted them. Let's say the Grove wanted High Limit shows. I don't know what shows they would do.
Yeah.
Because the amount of shows we already have there, they're just because you have to remember you're trying to fit their dates too, because they're traveling all across the country.
Yeah, and traditionally the Outlaw shows at Port didn't do that great, honestly.
No, because they were always in the middle of October.
Yeah.
Middle of October, going against college football sometimes in Penn State, which is 35 minutes away, roughly, or high school football even.
Well, I would say more so Hills of Natty O. A lot of people spend a lot of money that weekend.
Yeah. But they were always after the National Open, and National Open always has been kind of like the end of the year in here.
That's what I was saying.
Yes, Baps has a show or two. Yeah. Baps does all right with a show or two. But basically it's the end of the year with the National Open. Most of the teams, some of the teams finished. They don't race no more. School's back in session. High school football is going on. College football is going on. It just gets hard to draw then. And the years that they had the Outlaws at Port, weather never cooperated with them. They never had great weather. So it's just that time of year is just tough.
Well, in Tuscarora 50 time, we could sit here and say, well, what if that was an Outlaw show? That's traditionally the time of the year that the Outlaws West Coast swinged. That's when they would go.
Yeah.
So, High Limit, they kind of hijacked the marquee. What you're saying is like, the Outlaws tried to have sanctioned events, but they were going up against or didn't have the dates of the Tuscarora or Weichert. And if High Limit tried to come into Port, for instance, and make their own weekend, it wasn't going to compete. So, I guess it's kind of the perfect marriage for Port Royal to bring High Limit in on that, but definitely High Limit's benefiting from that partnership more than Port Royal is what you're saying. Hopefully they didn't get like a Kyle Larson autographed car in exchange. They got something more than that, you know. They didn't get fan struck by it, you
Yeah, I
know.
hope so too. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not talking
yeah.
about your golf
But
buddy
I'm sure
there,
they
but
did. Yeah, I'm sure they did. You know what I mean? But you know, it's you know, it's going to work out. I think for everybody involved. You know, and it's you know, we're fortunate enough we have so much racing in here. We get to race no matter who's in here or not in here.
well, and I do think that
As far as like traveling groups.
oh, definitely. And the one benefit to, you know, the high limit outlaw rivalry now, I do feel like it's almost hijacked or took the same playbook out of the PA posse versus outlaw thing. You know, that used to be kind of like such a marquee thing because it was this rivalry. And I feel like they got that kind of vibe now with a little spice added onto it, even better now when you have these high limit outlaw meets. You know, it has that same kind of flair and attention to it. Y'all get the double dip though. Y'all get to, you know, you get to go up against the outlaws
Yeah.
and the high limit. Is there still a difference for you though, personally, when you go up against the Outlaws versus going up against High Limit? Like when you're at Port Royal, are you like, well, it's a High Limit show, but it's Tuscarora, you know, who cares? You know, maybe Brad's are here or, you know, Wright's has
Well,
always been here, but
yeah,
when the Outlaws come to town, it's always been that moment, you know.
yeah. You know, they're both really tough organizations, really tough racers. So, but I've always looked at, I just go try to win the race. You didn't matter if it's high limit, all stars, outlaws, USA, whoever it might have been. We just try to win our special shows in here and try to beat the outsiders, no matter who they are. And it's no different from me. The outlaws have more tradition yet. You know what I mean? They probably mean a little bit more. The high limit deal is kind of a little, in our area, is a little skewed to me because we already had the Wykert race before they came. We already had Tuscarora 50 before they came. So it's those races that I'm worried about winning. I don't care if it's a high limit or who it is, you know, sanctioned show.
Right.
So it's just, you know, and that's no fault of theirs. You know, I think, you know, there's a certain, you know, I'm not a big, how do I say this?
You're not a
I'm
trophy
not a
hunter
big believer in what
or something. I don't know.
well, no, I'm not a big believer in what high limit started doing.
Okay.
You know, originally they were going to run midweek shows, not compete against the outlaw, and a year later they're running against the outlaws. You know, but with that said, there's enough cars to go around for both of them to survive. Some of the things that, yeah, the high limit does, I like. Some things I don't. Same as the outlaws. You know what I mean? They probably are going to force some changes to the outlaws eventually. Maybe not. Which could be good, could be bad. You know, I kind of compare it to live golf and PGA golf. You know, it's always about the money. That's what I tell everybody. It's always about the money.
It's about pace
you know,
Sporonic, but continue.
Yeah. So, you know, I think they'll be all right. They're all going to survive. They all have some money back in them. So, to me, the split is not like the last time, a couple times people split from the Outlaws, because it looks like the high limit group, who all is involved in it, has it kind of heading in the right direction and is pretty smart about it. I give Sweet or whoever is kind of the brainchild behind it some credit on some of the stuff that they're doing.
When you say some of the stuff, what specifically do you think High Limit is doing better than the World of Outlaws, in your opinion? What are the things you see that are worth tipping the hat to?
I think they do a little bit better job at promoting the races. You know, on social media and stuff. I think they're forcing the pay to go up a little bit for the traveling people. The only thing I'm not a big fan of, but I don't know enough about it to really say yay or nay, is their so-called charters or whatever they're calling them. You know what I mean? Because when they first announced that, and they first announced those 10, well, what's the incentive for somebody outside that to go race with them and try to run with them?
Right.
But they did announce stuff. There is some incentive, but I still, to me, there's a certain part of it. Yes, I know their system's a 2-year rolling average, but I use Brent Marks as an example. He was fifth or whatever he is on the standings going into next year. So, he could win the championship next year and still not get paid the championship money.
Right.
From my understanding.
Right.
His average will change and he'll gain more money, but he still won't get that top money. See what I'm saying?
Well, and I've never
he
really
could, I guess.
I mean, I've thought about it. Well, I can't say I haven't thought of it that way because I have, because I think they never cared about who's going to come in and race, because let's face it, Brad was trying to build a series that was going to go up against the Outlaws. He knows that the money is in the car ownership. That's where people are funding these things. That's who's got the most on the line.
Yeah.
The people who are buying the race cars outside the racetracks, I think, outside the racetracks. And the people actually, no matter who the monkey is in the seat, the people who are funding the cars to have the seat are very important. And I just think he or they put together a plan that was going to benefit those guys the most. Because if you look at it and what they're going to do by 2029, I believe it is, that's big money, for a car owner or somebody funding a seat on the racetrack. And so I don't really think they cared much about who may come in later. They were in that scenario where they're trying to go up against the Outlaws. Whoever will come with us now and, jump into this, against the Outlaws thing, you'll be rewarded. So I think maybe short term, it definitely looks beautiful. And like you're saying, long term, who knows if somebody else want to come on or whatever. But I think when they're trying to go up against the World of Outlaws in the bang fashion that they did, they're just trying to get anyone on board that they can, and we'll pay you well if you come and do it. So that's how it came across to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. But then even Brad said that in his interview. I forget what interview I've seen of him. After this 2 years, when you looked at it, it would look like, these, I would call it like a Formula One club. We got these 10 teams, and that's all we're worried about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's supposed to go up to 15. It's supposed to go up to 15.
Yeah, it can.
If they get 5 more.
So, well, no, but what they posted out there, and I don't know all the particulars, but to earn your charter, or whatever they're calling them, for the next 2 years, you either have to run top 3 in points in one of the 2 years, or run in the top 8 the 2 years.
Well, we may have to go look this up, because I remember when they first posted the charter deal, they showed the top 10 for 26 and 27 getting paid, and then it showed what the 28 and 29 would get paid, and then 28, it was to award 5 more charter spots. So you would have
but
15.
To earn them.
Yeah, you have to go run. You'd have to run now. From now, you'd have to run the next 2 years full time and be what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah, but you have to run 26 and 27. You have to run both full time, not miss races, and finish in the top 8 both of those years.
Correct. It's a hard feat. Yeah, that's tough to do. I mean, high limit ain't
Let me ask you. Let me ask you. Who that don't run with the high limit right now could go and race against them for 2 years and finish in top 8 both of those years?
In my mind, there were some guys left out to it. I have to go look at their points, but I would say if you want to not count the Outlaws, maybe Anthony Macri, maybe.
You can count the Outlaws if you want to.
Well, okay. If you count the Outlaws and everyone here, Macri, obviously Gravel, if they wanted to. Obviously, Gravel, Kofoid, Schuhart, I think could. Sheldon, I think Donny could. I think Donny could easily do that. I think there's
Okay,
some
now,
consistent.
now.
Okay, let's throw the Outlaws out. Let's just throw the Outlaws out for entertainment purposes. I think Macari's team could. I think the McCarl's team could. I think Tim's in the 10 car, if they was to decide to, they could do that. You got Kerry Matson in the 55. I think if they do 2 years, they could do that. There are some teams, but it's tough. It's very tough. I'm not saying it's easy.
Okay. So who was 8th in points this year with high limits?
I don't have my, what is it, Google Sheets? I don't have that on me right now, but I can go look it up. We're looking it up. Hold on. 8th in points was Brenham. Hold on. Now I don't want to be mean to this guy. Brenham Crouch.
Okay.
If you want me to name drivers who I think are better than Brenham Crouch, once again, not trying to be mean.
No. But so who was 7th?
7th was Dason.
Okay.
7th was Dason. They got a pretty good top 6, 7 there.
Okay, and Brandon Crouch young.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. The upside's there. You know what I mean? The upside's there.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, and they already have 2 years of on the road running.
Mm-hmm. And CJB, obviously CJB's got their stuff together, obviously.
Yeah. So, I'll even use Anthony and Joe and them. To go out to run full-time high limit, they are going to struggle at certain places. Not as much as probably some other people.
Oh, yeah. That was my point.
They will have their bad nights. So, to average 8th in points for 2 straight years is a hard task to me.
Right.
Okay. You're not adding 5 teams. See what I'm saying?
You're saying it. Well, I'm from the ghetto. I would say a hoodwink, but you're saying it's just not possible to really, unless you are David Gravel and Macedo and maybe Macari, maybe the elite outlaw teams. I think Schuhart could do it. I'm sorry. Hold on. I don't want to pull up World Outlaws.
5th or 6th?
Yeah, but
5th or 6th in the outlaw
that's
points?
a different consistency. I do think that is where you've been a full-time outlaw guy. You have a certain level of consistency, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny. I can't believe that just happened as we just said that. News just broke live here on the show. We'll get your reaction. I know we just mentioned Brenham Crouch, but Donny Schatz officially joins CJB Motorsports for the 2026 World of Outlaw Tour. I didn't know. I was going to look at their points.
Wow.
But that was just announced. Yeah, I didn't see that one either. I know there was a lot of different rumors. That just happened. I don't know.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, just 7:59 p.m. Tonight. So 15 minutes ago. I don't know what that means for Brenham. Maybe they're opening up their own. Let's see what it says here. Donny Schatz.
Second team, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking. Donny Schatz has secured a new home for CJB Motorsports at CJB Motorsports for the 2026 World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car Series season. This pairs the 10-time champion. Blah blah blah. The move marks a return to the World of Outlaws for CJB. They're not really saying anything about high limit and Brenham Crouch, obviously. I mean, why would they?
No.
But
well, then I would say that he's out.
I mean,
I would say that because you would think they would make sure they would clarify if they were having a second car with him.
Well, the World of Outlaws wouldn't. I don't think the World of Outlaws would say that.
No, but I'm looking at.
You're looking at
I'm
CJB's
not looking at their press release. I'm looking.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on F1 Motorsports or fully injected Motorsports.
Okay.
The press release from Tyler Altmaier.
CJB Motorsports might have a Facebook page. Let's see what they're saying. They just gave happy birthday to Brenham Crouch on their Facebook page. So obviously that was a month ago, but why would you do that if the partnership is coming to a close?
Well,
I'm thinking
here's what
CJB may
they're
have the
talking about.
resources to be able to do both. They really could. I mean, they
Yes.
could.
Yes. And it might be true because it's the 15 for one thing, not the 5. And they're talking about, Barry was coming off the road supposedly. Well, he's the crew chief on it. So I could picture them maybe having 2 cars, 2 teams.
That's what I'm saying. I
and
don't.
both.
Well, and Brenham obviously has some good finances behind him. That I'm not saying that's what buys your way to the top, but it does help keep the team on the road.
Top.
Well, but it keeps
it don't buy your way to the top.
No, it can't.
Yes.
It could buy your way to the top in midgets, not sprint cars. Or it could buy you the way to the top in NASCAR too, but not in sprint car racing.
Well,
We're protected.
It can't buy your way to the top in NASCAR.
Oh, we're not getting in this debate.
Into NASCAR.
Okay. It could buy your way into NASCAR, yes, but
it's not buying you. You can't take whoever Joe Blow and give Hendrick enough money to replace Larson or replace Chase Elliott.
But you could compete against them. I mean, hey, I'm not going to be mean here to Kyle. I know you and Kyle are best friends and all that, but
no, I mean anybody. I mean Denny Hamlin, whoever.
Well, but hold on now. Chase Briscoe. The greatest example of this is Chase Briscoe, and I'm buddies with Chase. I mean, I don't have problems with him, but at the end of the day, Chase Briscoe was an average dirt track racer. And he was just in the Final Four and potentially could have won the NASCAR Cup championship.
Yes.
This is an average dirt track race. This is a mid-packer, Lance, in our world.
But
if you got the money, all I'm saying is if you got the money, you could potentially have a chance at winning a NASCAR Cup championship.
Because of the money. He's not in Joe Gibbs' ride because of the money.
Opportunity and money are two different things, I think. There is a difference. But
talent money
is
gets
not.
You so far.
Talent is not. Chase Briscoe got opportunity. Maybe not had the money, but he had opportunity. Just like Kyle, he didn't come from money. Money came to him at a very young age. Opportunity came to him. But all I'm saying, I'm a talent guy, in my opinion. A guy like Chase Briscoe doing what he's doing in the Cup Series as a mid-pack dirt guy is kind of saying, whether it's opportunity or money comes to you or whatever, you could be, that guy, technically, with average talent. Because that, in my opinion, that's what Chase Briscoe is. He was an average guy. The cards just fell the right way.
Yes. And there's also a difference between average one. What some people see in talent in one class is not necessarily they have talent or not, and when they move up, they're better. So I'm going to give you me as a perfect example. I raced 3 years in micros when I first started racing.
Now, hold on. I've heard this story.
Not
micros, the 270s, the mosquito killers, the shifters. There's a weird culture of 270s in PA. It's weird. Y'all love them things.
Yeah. So I ran 3 years in them, never won a race. I've won a race every year I've been racing 410s.
So are you saying there's guys from that 270 class that beat you that could have done better?
Maybe. I'm also saying there are certain drivers like certain things. I'm not picking on any midget driver specifically. The best midget driver might not make the best wing sprint car driver. See what I'm saying?
Well, in today's world, I think that's an onion of layers of reasons, but I know what you're saying. Yes, it's just not the same.
No,
piece.
I mean just talent. I'm just talking talent. So the guy
if you're
that wins all
talking
the
talent,
midget
then
races,
that's exactly why I don't respect the current midget world, because it's a mini NASCAR to me. Because if you don't go out and throw $300,000 and get into one of those Keith Coons Motorsports vehicles or a Chad Boat midget, it don't matter how good you are, you ain't going to outrun them. It's a performance advantage, just like in NASCAR. Just like in NASCAR. If you don't get one of those Gibbs, Penske's, or Hendrick cars, Good luck.
Yeah.
Good. It don't matter if you're the best. It don't matter if you're Jeff Gordon. You ain't gonna finish up there. The car will only take you so far. Just like in midgets, the car will only take you so far.
But what I'm saying, when somebody wins a bunch in something, that don't mean when they move to something else that they can win. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understood your
To
point.
get any money issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understood your
You know what I
point.
mean?
I was just saying it's a layer of
Yeah.
reasons. It is a layer of reasons. But what do you think about this? Donny
Yeah.
shot CJB. I'm curious on your opinions now. I mean, we could argue
That
midgets and NASCAR, but this is
yeah.
big, right?
I don't know. This is a little interesting. Yeah. I did not see that one coming.
Who did?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna assume I can tell you probably what one of the sponsors on the car will probably be, and you probably know that already too.
Don't tell me
without them announcing it yet.
Who? You tell me.
It was on the sides car for him.
And
they're a PA-based company.
JVI. Oh my.
Yep. I mean.
Well,
so it will be interesting. Like that did shock me. Didn't see that one coming.
I mean, this is a funny thing. We got you on the show, and every time somebody comes up to me, I deal with a lot of fans nationally, not just PA. So what I mean by that is there's some sober fans out there. I know y'all are drinking Yingling all the time. Your fans at least. But no, I'm just kidding. But it does seem like people are like, oh, well, Donny, he's just over the hill. He's old. He's over the hill. He's old. He just can't do it no more. And I always say, I do reference you, Lance. I say, Lance Dewease is still out there kicking ass. I mean, we could reference the late model guys, but that's a whole nother world, Dale McDowell's and all that. But what do you think of Donny shots? You're seeing this opportunity now. You saw what happened last year. I don't know if you have opinions on that, on the splits and all that. You don't have to give any. But what do you think Donny's got left? What are you thinking? You've been his age. How old are you, for the record, so the fans know? Just
I'm 60 now.
You're 60. Donny's not 60.
No, he's 50. He's 50. I think he's 10 years younger.
I think he's 40 something. Hold on. Do we need to call him? No.
Maybe he's more than that.
He's like 40, 46 or 7, I think, or 8 or something. He's still in his 40s.
Somebody that's 10. There's somebody 10 years younger than me that I can't remember who it was.
Well, the most impressive guy is Sammy, huh? The Sammy's probably the most impressive guy to be still out there rolling. But I don't think that racing is like stick and ball. You ain't getting hit by linebackers. Yeah, you can wreck. I'm not saying you can't. But I think it's closer to golf than it is football, for instance. You can develop skills, and it's probably not even like golf because it's a mechanical thing. You don't have to drive the ball 350 yards or 300 yards to keep up. You have the race car. It's a mental thing. It's a skilled thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think skills develop. I would say a prime for a true sprint car superstar, say gravel. I don't even think he's in his prime yet. I think at 35 to 40, that's his prime.
I agree with you.
And so
the experience takes over.
Right.
More than.
Well,
there's a certain amount.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sprint car racing there's a certain amount in sprint car racing that you have to learn to slow up to go fast. And Anthony has done a great job of that.
Right.
Some guys never learn that.
Right.
What makes Anthony so good now everywhere is because he can run everywhere on the racetrack.
Yeah.
You just don't knock a wall down. He can run the bottom. He can, I watched him run, not when he won King's Roll, the night he ran second, he ran right in the middle and looked good as heck. You know what I mean? 3 or 4 years ago, he would have never done that.
Right.
So I just think there's a certain amount, the experience takes over to a certain extent. So to Donny, he is way better than what has shown the last couple of years. And, all you have to do is look at
Ryan Timms.
Split, Well, no, I'm talking about the split.
combo can make you good,
Yeah,
is what I'm saying. If you ain't right with
yeah.
your crew chief and
But
team, that suffers a lot.
you look at the split. The other car did not get no better. Okay. Shots really didn't get no better, but it's hard to be jumping from one team to the next team to the next team too.
On the outlaw level, that's the key, right? It's not PA or Knoxville; it's the outlaw level.
No,
and
it's mixing teams together just to get him to go race. Yeah, it's not like he hopped in the 2-car of Big Game and went racing. You know what I mean? They put a second car together, wrecked the first night out. Now they're piecing stuff together to keep him out there racing with the Outlaws. Then his friend sides, they put a second car together to help him finish the year out. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he just went to a team and was the main person on that team.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But he is way better than what his performance the last couple of years is. And let's be real, the Ford in the 26 is not very good.
Well, I mean, when it was
there's a very aggressive driver.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And my point to the age brackets, like 35, I said 35 to 40 is your prime. For instance, there's a really damn good quarterback right now named Aaron Rodgers, who in the stick and ball sports, I think is on the ending of the stick and ball sport age bracket. I think he's 42 or 40 or something like that. I would put where he's at, maybe where, you or Sammy might be, in that upper 50s, early
That's
60s.
Fair. Yeah.
That's kind of the ending stage of it, maybe. I still think obviously you can still go out there and kick ass. So, and just like Aaron Rodgers, he could still go out there and kick some ass. But when you're in your 40s and 50s, early 50s, mid 50s, early 50s, we'll say, I still think you're in, you're not in your, like it's stick and balls. Prime in sprint cars is 35 to 40. I think stick and balls probably 27 to 34.
Yeah.
I think that's where, even though Donny ain't 35 to 40, he's still 36, 37 in the stick and ball world, and he's still got 3 or 4, 5 more, hell, it could be 10 more years before it really gets to that Aaron Rodgers stage. And Aaron Rodgers could maybe potentially win a Super Bowl this year. If the team does it right, he could win it all. So I think there's a big gap between what people think too old in racing is. It's not fair comparing it to other sports, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think he can win races still. He can run way better than what he's been running the last couple of years. Do I think he can win a championship again? I think that's a tough task for him.
Why do you think it's tough? It's Donny freaking Schatz, Lance. You know what that is,
I know.
Right? You know who Donny is, right?
I think the biggest problem to overcome there is the guy that's winning it right now, he would have to slow up.
You think so?
Because
you think Gravel's that badass right now? You do.
I think his consistency is so good.
I almost got you to say badass. You almost said it.
The thing that he does so well night in, night out is qualify. Yeah. And that just keeps you up front all time. And you are not getting into trouble. You're finishing races.
Yeah.
If you go back, and Doug Wolfgang told me this a long, long time ago, you get in wrecks because the people you're around. You don't get in wrecks when you're up front running.
Yeah.
You get in wrecks when you're in the back.
Hard to deny that.
I was in 2 wrecks last year, not 24, because we were in the back racing with cars we shouldn't have been racing. We put ourselves in that position and got in wrecks, not because of my fault, but wrecks that happen around you. You see it with Shots a lot this year. You can see it with other people. When you're starting, 18th to 20-something, you are putting yourself in vulnerable positions beyond your control. you know,
Well, I
David
think
don't
with
get wrecks
Donny,
because he's up front starting.
well, I think more so what you're saying, and this is the difference between a Donny and a Kofoid. I don't even think starting 18th or 20th in the main's the problem. When you're starting 4th or to 6th in a heat race or 7th, and you're not
Yes.
ready to put your ass in the fence and kill yourself to get to 2nd, you're gonna be starting 18th or 20th. You know,
Yeah.
if you're not willing to put yourself on, and most of the time the heat race tracks are good and hooked up, and you got to really get in there and go after it and put yourself in an inch. You got to be a midget racer. Let's be honest. That's what you got to be
Yeah.
in these heat races when you're starting 4th or 5th or 6th. You got to really throw it in that first corner, and if there's an inch, you make a mile with it. You know, and I don't think Donnie's the style of guy to
No, he's
make a
not.
mile with it. You know, Kofoid is. That's how Kofoid performs in the
Yeah.
heats like he does and is able to get into positions even though he don't qualify well. But if you don't qualify like David or Carson, I think Phil Dietz does a good job.
Yeah.
And you don't drive
Yeah.
like a Kofoid, now you are starting 12th to 20th in the main event. And that's you can't make that up on the outlaw level. It's just almost impossible.
No. And I mean, and Donnie actually passes a lot of cars. He raced actually half decent.
Yes.
But he's so far behind the 8 ball to start, it just takes him out of chances. So if I think he will be improved going to the CJB car. They'll qualify better, I think. They'll you know what I mean. But to top gravel right now
it's that tough.
You would have to be really special. I mean, look how good Buddy was this year, and he couldn't do it.
With the aggressiveness.
And he really wasn't even close to doing it. Yeah. And he really wasn't even close to doing it.
No, he was having to Hail Mary it. You know.
Yeah.
And
so I don't see the 2 car with David or Cody slowing up. I mean, they can have problems. You know, the one thing they don't do is drop out races. So they could, come out next year and have issues, that is beyond their control. You just never know. But it's just a tough task to me. I just think it would be a tough task. But he is not a 10th to 18th racer. He's a top 5 guy all day long.
You say that for the 2 car.
No, I'm talking about Schatz.
Well, but I mean,
he's a top 5 guy all day long. Gravel. I don't know if you can do that, hopping in a new deal.
You're saying the 2 car is a podium guy. He's on the front straight every night.
Yes,
you got to do that.
More or less, yes.
Well, and I think that is the big jump. Like I made a joke when Donny called in. He likes the high limit format. He thinks the inverts and all that kind of gets away from the engine cartel, which obviously him and his dad took a decent amount of time to do that LS motor. They kind of wanted to make some kind of engine package that was more fair and could compete. They care. The Schatz family's amazing people. I don't know if you've dealt with them much.
Yes.
But Donny,
yes, they are. Yes.
They're just all around good people. So they're very sincere in the way they move. I was even joking with their nieces this last weekend and made one of them mad. But you could tell they're very centric. But you see a situation like this with Donny with the CJB car, and you think to yourself, man, maybe if it was before Gravel got on his roll. Because I think what you're saying here is it's not that you think Donnie's not going to do great. You just see that 2 car as just amazing. And it could be maybe if high limit forces them to change the format a little bit to help everyone else out, then maybe there's a shot. But if you keep this traditional outlaw format and that 2 and that team stays rolling how they're rolling, good luck. I mean, it's sew it up, basically.
You can talk what you want, but the 2 car is the best race car, period, sprint car in the country.
Right. It is.
And I would put Rico second.
I don't know if you could do that. This is another deal
with Buddy in there. With Buddy in there.
But I don't know if you could do
Okay.
that. I don't know if you could do that. I mean, that's the other joke I had with Donny. I was like, Donny, I'm surprised High Limit ain't gave you 30% to come race Rico at High Limit. You know, I mean, Rico had these fluctuations in his season that you're admitting, you know, and we all see. The top 5, I mean, maybe I would put Logan Schuchart and Rico about the same. That's what I would say. Because that 41 and that 83 ain't too far behind the 2. I understand the 2's better.
No.
I understand the 2's better. But the 83 and that 41 ain't too far behind. And then you got the 1S right behind them, too. And that consistency that those cars are doing is way better than Rico. Just saying it. I mean, honestly.
And the other thing that everybody's missing a little bit is the 87 too is one of the fastest cars around.
To me, the 87 would have won High Limit without 2 injuries.
Yes.
2 injuries, Lance. 2.
Yeah.
I mean, Reitzel's is, I want to say shitting and getter, and I did, but Reitzel's a dog, man. To me, that's the high dog of High Limit, personally, is Aaron Reitzel. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because, and I deal with the late model world a lot. And it's so refreshing, Lance. And you're an older driver. When I walk into a late model pitting area after qualifying, and I go through the pitting area, the damn drivers are up under the hoods changing out the carburetors themselves. You know, like they're working on the car. I go into an outlaw pitting area after hot laps for qualifying, and they're in there on their phones, you know, making a video or something. But Aaron Reitzel, he's a wrench on his own stuff. That's rare in our industry.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that's why he has the edge on those guys in High Limit. Aaron Reitzel's a crew chief. That's a big deal when you got a driver who can still wrench on his car, because that's kind of unheard of at the top levels of our sport.
Yeah, well, he's more old school like me than the kids nowadays. You know what I mean?
And you think that makes him a very viable? Would you put the 87 above the 24 then?
Yes.
And then where would that?
I'm like you. I believe I put him right behind the 2.
It'd be nice to see them all together, would it not? Why did High Limit have to do this to us, Lance? Why?
Well, I did. Well, but
you know what I'm saying? Like,
if High Limit don't come around, I don't see the 87 run a tour full time.
Right. And
he would be more of a pick and choose schedule.
Yeah, and potentially, you know, that little clique over there with the Outlaws. I don't know. Do you notice the clique? I do, but you know, they didn't treat Reitzel fairly, I don't think, even though he had his little chassis that he used. There's a lot of things that get slid under the table, from my understanding. And that one was such a big deal. But I think that's why Aaron's so passionate to be behind the High Limit series, because they didn't do anything like that to him personally. But
I think the High Limit deal fits certain people better, and I think it fits Aaron because he still can go race other races he wants to race. He might not want to run 80 races a year. You know what I mean?
Well, but don't you think the schedule's kind of a cop-out? I mean, it's not really a 60 race schedule. I mean, they're off for the Kings Roll, Houston's race, Knoxville. I mean, if those were High Limit sanctioned events, they wouldn't be off. I mean, let's be honest. So I don't know if that's fair. They're playing their card. Like, maybe we could talk about that. I mean, High Limit saying we have a shorter schedule and, you know, you can go run all the outlaw races. It's fine. This freedom-based idea. Don't you think that that's kind of just like, that's their only card they have to play? You know, they're not in the other catbird seat. They don't own all the races, you know? So why would they restrict their guys? You know, they can't. You know, that's
they couldn't. They can't. They couldn't.
Because
there's no way they'd get them.
Yeah, so it don't benefit High Limit to do that, but it sure as hell benefits the Outlaws to put the leash on their guys. It does.
I understand. You know, I've been around a long time. I understand why the Outlaws do it. Because, you know, let's use our area example. You know, the Grove has an outlaw show Friday and Saturday. if they allowed their guys to run any show, and I'll just use Babs as an example, Babs could run a Sunday show, pay $20,000 to win, and get those guys to show up, and not pay the sanctioning fee.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the original deal of the Outlaws, I understood all that. I just think they could. I think they could open it up to a little bit more races, for their guys.
What do you think? What do you think
Yeah,
about? I know I just mentioned late models, but did you see that new Dirt Cup event they have? It's revolutionary for late models.
No.
So the late models over the weekend at the Dome, which I still think sprint cars should be there, but the Muskingum County, which is owned by Moran, the $1 million man Moran, not Devin's dad, they have a race scheduled this next year, $200,000 purse race weekend. It is co-sanctioned by the Lucas Oil Late Models and the World of Outlaw Late Model Series. And it's an invite-only event. So it's I think it's top 15 from Lucas and top 15 from the World of Outlaws. And it's a legit. It's not like King's Royal and everyone's there. No, it's a legitimate weekend. Is that is that the future?
But they're going to limit it to 30 cars. They're going to limit it to 30 cars.
I don't know if it's 15 or 20. I don't know what the number is. It's invite only.
Or
it's an invite only event.
Yeah, but is the invite the top 15 out Lucas, top 15 out Outlaws, then they can invite whoever else they want?
No, series drivers only. No, series drivers only.
Okay.
Now, obviously, late models have more cars. Obviously, car owners, so they could pull that off a little easier. But this is an actual event, never happened before ever. But it's official. It is an official Lucas Oil World of Outlaw co-sanctioned race.
What I'd like to see in sprint car racing would be the World Outlaws and High Limit to do the same thing. 1 or 2 shows, whatever. And we're both broadcast them too. Because it'd be interesting how they got this worked out for the broadcast.
That is interesting.
So
that is the very interesting part. I got it on the screen right now so people can see it for facts. But it's official.
I'm assuming Flow and Dirt Vision will both.
Well, here's the deal, Lance. You know that they had Amazon Prime this week with the freaking Gateway show. Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I heard that.
So here's what I'm thinking.
On the one night.
Is Amazon, here's the next level, because we got to kind of get away from the streaming in a little bit of I think, a little bit of a way. To really expand the sport, we got to get away from it because it's too divided. So if you can get something like this and say Amazon Prime comes in with their financial support, compensates Dirt Vision, compensates Flow, which I'm assuming that's what happened with the Dome, and now we just put it on Amazon Prime. We just pay y'all what y'all should have made.
The Dome wasn't a sanctioned race.
It was not, but I'm just saying in a scenario
Flow
here.
covered it, but.
Right. Well, I'm just saying in a scenario here where you got a Flow series and a Dirt Vision series, which is how we should all be viewing these. It's not Outlaws versus Lucas or High Limit. It's Flow versus Dirt Vision. I think scenarios like this, and like you said, I'm very curious to see who is going to cover this. But I do think the spin on this to take it next level is when you have these, at least in this scenario with the late models, an actual together event, you put it on a together platform, which would be an Amazon Prime, right? It would be one of these bigger entities, FS1 or something,
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I would love to see the Outlaws and High Limit go, okay, we can work over 1 race, 2 races, whatever. And both Dirt Vision Flow cover it, have both announcers announcing it, working together. And I think it would be very good for the sport and very good for everybody involved on both sides.
Well, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut off that idea.
I could see it happening down the road. I could see it happening down the road, maybe just not in a year or so, I don't think. Maybe, who knows?
Well, I mean,
once everybody's, kind of calmed down a little bit.
Well, I mean, obviously this Lucas Late Model World influenced all this, in my opinion. because the
Yeah.
late model people started making so much money. You even heard Kyle and Brad talk about it. I was talking about before they did. But, the late model world was racing for so much more money than y'all on a consistent basis. And it was more of a free market. And it was the competition element that kind of influenced the other series to pay more, whether that was with races or championships or, the late models have been battling forever. They've had 2 series technically
Yeah.
for a very long time. So it influenced it in the split, I think, but it also could influence them on how to deal with it. With this example,
Yeah.
the Lucas Oil late models and the World of Outlaw late models working together, it's definitely going to, I think, speed up the process on if we can see High Limit and the World of Outlaws working together. Now, I do think, I've always wanted our sport to be a little bit more mainstream, in front of people, show it off. I think every time I've introduced a sprint car or late model to a new person at a bar or something, they're blown away. They've never seen it before in their life. They think it's the best thing in the world. Wow, what's this thing drifting around a track? They're racing? Wow, I've never seen this before. So I do think that, expanding our audience is just about exposure. So I think that's why Amazon Prime or some big platform is what's going to help that, versus I feel like Flow and Dirt Vision kind of keep it in the bubble where we need to try to be pushing it out of the bubble. So I do think that Prime and some of these bigger platforms will help that. So I get what you're saying as far as having like the visual commentary. Like if you had a High Limit outlaw show, let's have Chase Rodman and Johnny Gibson be the guys. Let's have TB or what the guy with the greatest talks. What's his name? The Flow pit reporter guy.
Oh.
He's the greatest in the world. I can't remember it either. I always do. TLP, what's his name? He does so good.
I can't think of his name.
I can't either, and I feel so bad. Oh my God, he does such a good job.
I can't think of either one of them. I can't think of either one of them.
Connor Wade. I can hear Connor Wade because I dealt
Connor
with
Wade and
what's the
I can't think of it.
What's the tall guy who could beat everyone up and that's why no one gets mad at him? What's his name? Oh my God,
I can't think of his name.
It's
terrible.
not Danny Dietrich. Oh God, what is it? No, I'm just playing. Oh, Tony Laporta. There it is. Thank you, God.
Yeah, there you go.
Tony Laporta. But that would be good, right? If you had Rodman and Gibson, and then you had Laporta and Wade on like a desk talking crap, maybe even me in there as a Pat McAfee yelling at the Larson fans. But no, that would be a good production, but put that on Prime. Let's do it big.
Yes.
Let's build it up. Let's make it bigger, and they could work together to do it. Just like the PA series, get your egos, push them to the side. Let's build the sport.
Yeah.
So, sorry, we just went on a rant. I don't know why. I thought it wasn't.
Well, it started with the Schatz news.
It did start with the Schatz news, but this is real. I mean, High Limit Outlaws, I think that could be a really good thing. Obviously, they halfway play off of it right now. They just don't talk about it enough. At least the Outlaws don't. High Limit plays with the Outlaws all the time.
Yeah, they do it. Like, that's one thing I do give a little bit of it. Like, I give the Outlaws a little bit of credit because they don't. High Limit is trying to make it more them against the Outlaws, and the Outlaws are making it Outlaws against High Limit.
Well, but once again, that's kind of what they need to do, right? I mean, that's the established brand,
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense for them.
They're piggybacking off them a little bit.
Well, right, and it's like some people were mad that High Limit's not in Florida. Well, it's like, why do that? I mean, just send your High Limit guys down there, run the World Outlaw events, promote how good your High Limit guys do against the Outlaws, and you just opened your season in Florida. You didn't even have to. You didn't have to put on a race. You did it on the Outlaws backs, literally.
But realistically, the 2 series are kind of West Coast, East Coast series that spread across the Midwest, and they dabble on each coast. Other than that, you think about High Limit's mainly Midwest to the West Coast. The Outlaws are the East Coast to the Midwest, and they each dabble on each coast a little bit.
I don't know if I could agree with that. I mean, High Limit has a pretty good schedule in PA. They go to New York. I mean,
Yeah, they actually this year they've kind of gotten a little bit better schedule around our area,
Well, they got
a little bit more.
what's their Ohio? They've had Fremont. They got Eldora. I mean,
I
well,
guess,
they
yeah,
are.
I guess really I forgot about Ohio stuff.
Yeah, why does everybody in PA forget about Ohio? I feel like Ohio's underrated. I mean, has that always been a
Oh,
thing,
they
or?
are. Oh, I think they're very tough. Like I think they're a very tough area.
Well, it's obviously a little
I
different of a
raced out there.
racetrack. It's dusty, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think some of it is our area's always been very competitive against outsiders, and I'm talking before I ever started racing. So
Okay,
we have a big history. We have a big history in here of beating USAC, Outlaws, All Stars, whoever. You know what I'm saying?
right.
And I'm talking before I even strapped in a car.
Okay, like Lynn
It's been
Paxton
that way
era.
forever. Yeah, Lynn Paxton used to kick the Outlaws' butt and used to kick USAC's butt. You know what I mean? It's it's just always been that way. So I think Ohio's always kind of got forgotten about a little bit, But I'm telling you, from racing out there and knowing those places and knowing those guys, they are as bad as they can be when they come in our area. We are just as bad when we go to their area.
That's
Danny, you take Danny, perfect example. Now Danny's getting better out there because he's gone out there and raced year after year after year now.
right.
The Ohio Speed Week. But when he first went out there, he's kind of stunk at a lot of the tracks. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a whole different deal. No different than when they come in our area. It's a whole different deal. And I always, our areas pride ourselves on beating the outsiders. And we've been very fortunate to do it, no matter who it is. And we've done it through decades. Okay. But those locals in Ohio are very tough.
Yeah, their turf is different. Their turf is different for sure.
Yeah. But they are very tough on their racetracks. And it even shows because they might not beat them as much as we do, but they run really good against them guys.
Yeah.
And
well,
that's where,
Well, I was just going to say, like, the one thing that's weird about Ohio versus, like, say, Iowa, for instance, or even y'all, like, the tracks that the locals run on, that's where the big shows are. Like, you run at Williams Grove every weekend. That's probably one of the biggest shows is at Williams Grove. Port Royal, biggest shows at Port Royal. Here in the Midwest, Knoxville, Huset's. That's where the biggest shows are. Ohio, though, they don't really even race at Eldora. Like, the locals don't really run there. They're at all these other tracks. And then it kind of, I had this discussion with Kel Thomas. It's like, isn't that kind of bad for y'all, as far as defending your home turf? Because you don't even really have a home turf advantage. You don't play on your own field that gets all the glory, which is Eldora for Ohio.
Yeah. And there's less now. They used to race a little bit more because when the All-Stars in their prime used to race Eldora more. But then, in the recent years, Eldora doesn't run selected shows anymore. And you never got to go. They don't even get to go to that race now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Other than you show up for a 4-day week against the best in the business.
Right. So when people talk about the Ohio guys being so good, we don't even really get to view them play on their home field, because Eldora, even though it has all the glamour, and rightfully so, it's an amazing facility, amazing events, but the local, competition don't get to run there. I mean, how would that be in PA if there was a track there that had all the biggest shows, but y'all don't even race there? It's like, that wouldn't be a fair representation.
It would be the same way, yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, you take one of the reasons Cole Macedo won at Fremont.
That's where he went, yeah.
That's where he learned to race.
Yeah.
So he spent a year or so there. I'm not sure how long he spent there.
Right.
You know what I mean? He had an advantage over some of those other traveling guys because he grew up racing there a little bit.
Right.
You see it at Atomic, you see it at Attica, you see it at all those places. And they're way better racers than what a lot of people give them credit for.
Yeah. We
It's
just
just
don't
different type of racing.
we just don't get to see them on a stage
No,
on their
no.
hometowns. I mean, Eldora in a weird way is really amazing for Ohio, but at the same time, for the reputation of the drivers there, it's not that good of a thing technically.
No, because really nobody thinks of it as like you said, as far as like the Grove for us. That's not their weekly local track. Eldora's not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, and if you're not from
so
Ohio, you
yeah,
don't really know. You only hear, that's one of the crazier things.
yeah,
I was just talking about, they started a 305 series down in Oklahoma or Arkansas or whatever, paying like 25,000 to win the championship. It's like 23 races. They're paying almost
yeah.
actually comparable to y'all's. But it's like, if you're not from that
Mhm.
area, you don't even really care. Just like Ohio. Like, yeah, people they hear about Ohio, but mainly it's Eldora, and if you don't hear about Eldora, you don't really know about all these other tracks or even PA, Williams Grove, Port
Yeah.
Royal, maybe, Lincoln. Okay. Yeah. Some people hear about that too, but it's very interesting how perception is a reality for a lot of people when they're judging areas and different forms of racing in that sense, in the same way. I mean, I do think the Ohio guys are way better than they are given credit for. It's just they don't get to play on their own turf at all, again, on a national stage,
They
at
don't.
least.
Their their biggest stage is not one of their weekly tracks, so they're at a disadvantage.
Right. Well, maybe Mansfield could change that. Obviously, that track's coming back a little bit differently, though. Sharon's probably a good one, but that's some people that then you have your Western Eastern Ohio battle or your Southern and Northern Ohio battle. It's like some people, Sharon's not a home track for Kel Thomas. That's the Blaney's or
Yeah,
something. I
yeah,
mean, it's weird. And then Sharon's basically Western PA. That's not even an Ohio track for some.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's more considered Western PA than Ohio, anyhow. So
right. I'm assuming you had some very interesting thoughts on that car that Blaney and them rode out. How about that thing that won? Oh my God! How is that
oh,
legal? Is it
well,
because
it's
they own
been
the
around.
track or what?
It's been around some. I mean, it's not nothing out. I mean, Dale has done some. Even when he raced on sprint cars before he went Cup, he had some different cars. Um, when he went to Cup and he owned a car that Woodruff wrenched on when Dale drove it, it had some different things done to it. He's always kind of been that way a little bit. There's nothing. I mean, it's very good at Sharon. But then again, they don't race it enough to know if it'd be really good elsewhere yet. They did test a little bit at Charlotte, but it's kind of like a one-off thing. I think it just gives Dave something to do.
Right. Well, and then that's even making me think. Like I feel like certain people can change programs around real quick. I mean, look at you going to the 12 car. You're a little bit more of an Aaron Reitzel style, we'll call it, where you wrench on the car a little bit more than the newer driver of our sprint car industry, which I think that more drivers need to start being that way. I think you could rise in the sport quicker if you know what you're doing with the wrench. But moving around like you have you had to carry your own kind of knowings of what the car wants and stuff like that and teach teams more so than just get into them and go? Hello, are you there? Oh, did we lose Lance? Oh God, we did. Oh God. Jesus said no. Hold on, we're getting him back. Didn't take long, I noticed.
Yeah, I don't know how we got disconnected.
You hung up on me. I got too serious with my
I hung
questions.
up. Okay.
It's all
No,
right.
I
It's all
didn't
right.
hear. I
Kyle
must have.
Kyle texted you and said, "What are you doing?" Hang up on his ass. No. Uh, that is funny. No, I was just asking. I was like, you obviously being a wrench of your own car, not all the time. Obviously, you have some great
Yeah.
wrenches with you, but it does seem like when you moved to the 12 car, it really got faster. It got quicker. How is that
Well,
moving? Go ahead. Sorry.
go. No, go ahead. Yes.
No, moving
Go
around.
ahead.
It seems like we were just talking about the Blaney deal. It seems like you have some tricks up your sleeve as well. You're like the little PA Aaron Reitzel, just a little older, if you know what I mean by that.
Well, I think the biggest advantage, first of all, when I started, we built our own cars, built our own motors, did everything we could just to go race. You know what I mean? So, I grew up in a different era of, racers that I mainly race against now. I would put Danny Dietrich's probably a lot like me. Where he
Yeah.
works on his own cars. He can do it kind of all. But the advantage of that is, to me, is I'm going to use Aaron as a perfect example, is when you go to a different ride,
Mm-hmm.
you can help it get quicker.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Even if you're not the one calling the shots, some things, some things you can do. You're just not sitting in the seat and going, it does this, it does that. The learning process can speed up sometimes. You know what I mean? On
Yeah.
what needs done. I'm fortunate enough I've done it a long time. I know the feel I need. And, I'm fortunate enough that, we, knock on wood, we tend to get it semi-quick. You know what I mean? Some things come a little easier than others. And it's always, when you go to a certain deal, you have to figure out the engine program, if it's any good, the motors run or don't run. There's always these little variables. And that's why I say about Schatz, it's very tough to do what he did, to jump from car to car and expect him to have results.
Even if he knows how to turn the
period of time.
wrenches, for instance.
Even because he's going from a different motor brand to a different motor brand. I'm not talking from Ford to Chevy, but I'm talking from, maybe a Kistler to a Ryder to a Ott. Who knows? I don't know who all.
Well, and you're just saying from your experience, what you're saying is like you can go from like the 69K to the 12 or the 8 or the 461 that we got on the screen with you. You can go to all these cars. You kind of know what you need to be in a box, but if the pieces that create the frame of that box are different, now you have to kind of adjust it, to get it in this, because the box you are in to be up front in these sprint cars is so small,
Especially nowadays, yes. And, I use me as a perfect example. I'm going to the 8 car for next year. I feel pretty confident that we can come out of the box being pretty good. But with that said, I'm in a different brand car for next year. Motors I've never raced. There's one motor there that I've ran, but motors I've never driven. So there's going to be a learning process of what this likes or what the car likes, or, I'm fortunate enough, I do my own shocks, so I know my shocks package is going to be relatively close. You know what I mean?
That's a big advantage. I didn't know that. That's huge in today's world.
And then, I'm pretty confident with cars because we're going to maximums, but they're still different than triple X's, which I was in this year. You know what I mean?
Well, and they say every chassis that's welded can be different. I mean,
every's different. So give you an example. Not this year, last year, I was in 3 different type of chassis during the year. Well, it's a moving target. Then you're just always trying, and we could be good at times, but we lost some consistency at times too. And this year, basically, I ran the same frame every single race this year.
And that was a big advantage, you think?
Because I didn't have to try. It kept working, so it's not like it didn't work. So we just kept fine-tuning it. And the second half of the year, we had a lot of speed. We had some issues happen to us, here and there at racetracks, but we had a lot of speed. We timed really good most races and read. And that's the hard part to get. It's hard to get consistent speed. And That's what gravel has. That's what Anthony has. That's what, Rico in a roundabout way has consistent speed. It seems like his high is high and his low is a little bit low, pretty low at times. Buddy, but you're not chasing from, trying not be 20th in time. You know what I'm saying? You're top 5 in time, or, whatever. I mean, you're not the slowest car in the group.
Well, I remember this 12 car, not saying the kid's a bad driver or anything like that, but they were at the back of A mains most of the time. I mean, you got over there and instantly, I feel like, took it to a contender. That's basically that knowledge you're talking about. I think that's the difference between a driver entering the corner, through the center, off, making a full lap on the track, being able to sit there in that car and instead of saying, oh, the car's off or the car's this or the car's that and not really knowing what to do, you're in there basically making adjustments on that race car as you're making laps. And I think that's a huge advantage, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, I think all good drivers do that. They can adjust on the fly, and it slows down. I mean, that's the biggest
Well, I was
thing.
more
It
so saying
slows
like you're
down
making like mechanical adjustments. You're like, instead of saying it's tight here, loose there, you're actually knowing on the car what needs to be changed. That's what I'm saying. It's a difference.
Yeah, it is a difference. I mean, there's that type of driver nowadays is not around to say there might be eventually. My son's pretty sharp at 18 years old, pretty sharp with these cars already. And, if he gets his chance to show his driving ability, see where he can go with it. But it's there's just not a lot of kids that grow up wanting to work on race cars.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just, and there's some teams that don't want a driver like that.
That's true.
There's teams that want a driver just show up and drive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's fine and dandy until you're struggling and you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because then it becomes a blame game instead of everybody working together.
Well, that's the only problem. Is normally it starts a blame game either from the driver to the crew chief or the crew chief to the driver, or, one of those two to the owner, and then you can see it just starts falling apart, and that's normally what happens then.
Yeah, and drama.
If you have a driver and crew chief that work, if you have a driver and the crew chief can work through the bad times together, that will be a successful team and duo. And I know them. I'm friends with them. Anthony and Joe Mooney this year. They started the year off terrible. I mean, they were slow. Didn't change nothing. Same cars, same motors, everything. They were just slow. They were slow in Florida. They were slow when they went, ran with the Outlaws early in the year. They were just slow. Couldn't time good, couldn't race good. Just slow. But they figured it out and got it head in the right direction and got back to where they were used to being.
Yeah. And you're saying that's kind of like that gauntlet you almost have to go through with a team and a driver in a situation to really get to that premium performance level. You're saying now, since they went through that, that's going to be stronger, that's going to be faster. They're going to be able to get quicker, faster than somebody who maybe don't work that well together.
Well, you have to remember, they never had that.
Right.
Since Joe got there, they've been pretty fast. So that was their worst time of being together. So, they got through it and didn't kill each other in the process of it. So, so to me, that helps them down the road. Then if they start struggling again, they know, okay, we got through this before. We'll get through this. We'll figure it out.
Is that what, when we hear some of these people say, oh, well, we hear it in interviews all the time. They're like, well, we just kind of went back to basics. We hear the big, teams that have been together for long, say that, and they start winning again. Somebody asks them how. They say we went back to basics. Is that kind of is that what they mean? Is that a translation to what back to basics mean?
Kind of. I mean, most time what happens is you get trying some things, or you're adjusting on some things, trying to go faster. Sometimes when you try to go fast, you go backwards first before you kind of figure out what you need to do. And sometimes you get off, you get too far to the left or too far to the right of where you need to be, and you just kind of get back in line of where you need to be, and then you can get going again. It's a tough sport because you're always trying to go faster. You can't rest. It's a moving target, and everybody's always getting faster, trying to get faster. But like David and Cody, they are just fine tuning on that thing. They don't need to make wholesale changes. They just keep fine tuning it, and they're so good in their box right now that they have figured out that it don't take them a lot to be right. It's when your box is not working no more and you have to figure it out. That's when it gets tough.
Well, and the problem is everybody's aiming for their box where they're already good and they're fine tuning.
Yeah.
So that's like extremely hard to get close to, and now you're trying to obtain it. Yes, and that's the difficulty. I think even I told Kyle this when he had his amazing season. I was like, I think you're great and all that and everything, but I think that there's between a Kyle one season and say a Steve Kinzer career is it's hard to stay the lead rabbit, for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
That's a skill in
Yeah.
itself. And I think that's what you're trying to say there,
Yeah.
Gravel and them, they're in that elite box, but they're trying to figure out how to stay ahead of everybody else because everybody else is chasing them.
Yeah. And Buddy's a perfect example. You've seen him this year. They've gotten so much more consistent that they're kind of getting that same way. They're just kind of doing what they need to do. They're staying in their box basically and just keep fine tuning it to sneak up on it instead of, maybe Donny. He was so bad last couple of years. They're throwing everything they can at it.
Right.
And they go right past where they need to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's a tough deal. It's a tough box. So the most impressive thing to me is shots at Knoxville. That tells me like how bad their car is the last couple of years because he hasn't been very good at Knoxville, and I consider him the best person ever to race around Knoxville.
Right. I mean, I think they won.
Shows it.
They won 23 or 22, but unfortunately for us in the viewing world, Donny Schatz winning the Knoxville Nationals and not dominating it is, that's also the issue with Donny is the level he's judged at. Winning a Knoxville Nationals. Well, we need you to win 10 more this year. That's Donny not winning the Nationals. That we expect that. You know, so. It's just
but that's all teams.
But
because like in the 461, I won 30-something the 1 year, and the next year we won 26, and you would have thought it was a bad year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I feel like, you may even have that own pressure on yourself. I mean, I don't think you did horrible in the 12 car, but you're on to the 8. I mean, you obviously, I think there is a different mentality when it comes to professional race car drivers. You look at like Kerry Matson, for instance, which the Australian mentality of what a race car driver is way different than the American one. Most people would consider like Kerry too old and all this, and he's ready to go full time, high limit. I feel like us, we think that's crazy. Go start a family or something. But his career path is professional race car driver, and he takes that shit seriously.
Yeah,
like, that's how he lives.
Yeah,
and I feel like you're halfway in that box too. You may be a damn good golfer like Gary Wright. You may not know who that is. No, you actually know who. But
no, I know who Gary Wright is.
But what I'm saying is like you're in that element too. You're in the Kerry Matson box. I feel like more so than the new age box we see. You have to win races. That's how the bills get paid. So if you're not dominating like Lance Dewease should, you're going to try to find a way to get there with the 8 car now, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, it's I tell everybody, it's hard to win. You can, I'm using my year this year. I had 2 wins this year very easily. I think we could have 5 more just by having a different starting spot. There was plenty of nights that we probably had the fastest car, but we started behind the cars that we had to beat.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm using gravel as a perfect example. You start gravel 10th every week, he don't get the wins he has. And he still might have the best race car. See what I'm saying?
Well, what do you think?
But you just don't get the cautions, or
what do you think's making the difference? So you went from the 12 to the 8. What do you think the 8's providing you that's going to make that difference?
well, I think the biggest thing the reason I made it is the motor program is probably a little better than what I was involved with at the 12. You know, the guys at the 12 are a great group of guys. Barry did everything he would for me. But we basically had 2 motors, with the third kind of being brake glass in case of emergency use type deal. It wasn't a killer motor, just something if we had to go race with it, we could. You know what I mean? So we basically were one blown motor away of being in trouble, of not being prepared for the big shows. And that's what I like to be focused on. You know what I mean? That's what matters to me, is those 8 high limit shows at Port Royal, those 6 outlaw shows at the Grove, you know, all the big shows. That's what I focus on from day one of trying to get fast for.
So it's resources. You're saying resources.
Yes. Yeah, basically, yeah.
And motor's the resource. Everything else can kind of be secondhand, or is motor the killer in that area?
The motor is the hardest part. The motors are the hardest part. And what I mean by that is, let's say I hit the lottery today. I cannot get motors. New motors.
Yeah, heard about this.
You can't get them. Yeah, I mean, I would have a hard time getting motors. I would have to buy used motors and then get my name on the list, and hopefully, I think riders roughly a year out for motors. It might be, I don't know, maybe 6 months out for motors. You know what I mean? So if I hit the lottery today, I would have a hard time going racing and race a bunch of races. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm assuming the refresh
unless I just go buy a bunch of used.
Well, even the refresh list has to be pretty deep too at that point, or time frame.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are pretty good at, if you schedule it out, it's a couple week period and they get it back to you. But where you get in problems is if you blow one and now it needs repaired and now you're waiting on parts for it and, you heard something else, or it's very tough right now on the motor programs as far as if you were trying to start something from scratch.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons why I made the switch. I mean, the motor program is better than where I was as far as, we have quantities of it. If we have issues, we still have other motors we can go to. The car end of it, realistically, the chassis is the cheapest thing in racing anymore for us.
Right.
That's kind of the simple part. You know what I mean? So, just figuring them out is the hard part.
Well, it's just like people were questioning why Rico would want to buy an engine manufacturer. Well, if he needs a motor real quick, he can tell him to go in there and make it, I guess, I mean, I guess that's why, right?
Well, I think they're doing it for other reasons. They're doing it to have their own, I think, kind of,
Do you want competition owning a motor program, though? I mean...
Well, I don't think they're going. I don't know for sure. We hear all the rumors. I don't think they're going to sell to every Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be an open engine program for anybody. I don't think anybody can just go get a Speedway motor now.
Right.
I could be wrong. I don't know. I haven't heard the trueness, but from my understanding, it's kind of going to be a certain amount of people, and that's it. And
like
it would
a Charlie
fall
Garrett
part in
model.
the lines of Charlie Garrett.
Right.
Or Brian Morrison. Brian Morrison the same way. Yeah, I mean, there's only, they're only going to build so many. And, and that's it. And, it don't matter if you have money and, you can't walk in and buy a Charlie Garrett.
Right.
It don't matter what money you have. You know what I mean? Because he only can build so many, that's just what it is. And Brian's the same way, Brian Morrison the same way. So I think they're trying to build their own engine program, for the long haul, by doing this, and maybe still supply motors for a certain group of people. You know what I mean? I'm assuming Larson and Silva will be in that mix, and maybe a couple others, but I don't know for sure.
Right. Well, and they've traditionally been Ryder drivers, I believe. Larson, traditionally.
Yeah, well, he switched. He had a speedway in here at the Nationals and I think some other races.
Well, that's kind of the problem. That's somewhat NASCAR-fying the sprint car industry, because you go to NASCAR racing, you got to buy from Hendrick or Joe Gibbs or Penske. You want to race a Toyota, Ford, or Chevy. They're manufacturing the parts that go fast on the track, and they control who's good and who ain't. That's the only issue with.
Well, but some of that's also, it's easier for the Ware team who just announced they're going to have an alliance with Richard Childress. It's easier for them to pay Richard Childress to have motors than it is for them to start their own engine program from scratch. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
The amount of money involved to do that. You know what I mean? And then the technology end of it, to know all the other ends of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But if the Childress motor ain't on the level of the Hendrick motor and it's a discounted price, I mean, that's also the issue too. I mean, we're talking about competition. Hey, I mean, if you can't hit that qualifying lap with a Childress motor, but you could with the Hendrick one, I mean, who you want to buy from? But if Hendrick won't sell you one now, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, you kind of have that same boat here. I can't. A Charlie Garrett qualifies really good. I can't go buy a Charlie Garrett.
Right. That's the NASCAR-fying. That's what I mean by it's NASCAR-fying the industry in a way. And then you have the charters and the franchises now, and it's pieces are moving.
Yeah. But I mean, it's always been that way with Charlie, though. He only built so many, and that's it. You know what I mean? And there's a couple other engine builders like that. It's going to be like that too. But it just, it just is what it is. You can't, don't matter what you have, you always can't have maybe what somebody fast has. You know what I mean?
Right. You just got to tell Hoosier and them to build a better tire so they can't hook it all up. That's all.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to let you go. We've almost had you here for 2.5 hours. I didn't know it would go that long, but we had some breaking news. So, we'll see what happens with Donny. The 8 car. What's your thoughts? What's your expectations with this 8? I know people are y'all changing the paint scheme? I already had people say, ask Lance, is he going to get away from that ugly red? I mean,
it's different. We already have the layout done. People will see it here start of the year. We might do little sneaks here and there, peaks of it, but it's a pretty sharp looking car.
Still a number 8?
Yeah, it's not going to be mainly red. It's not. Yeah, it's still a number 8. That's his number. But it's going to be more different than, it's not red. So
it's not red,
but it's a pretty sharp looking car.
That's great. Is it?
It's mainly white.
Is it still the same old trailer? It's a single stacker, right? Or they get the double stack going?
It's the Hamilton trailer, old Hamilton trailer.
Oh, okay. I just asking.
Yeah, it's the old Hal Hamilton trailer. So it's pretty neat because he has the win list of everybody that the amount of races they won out of that trailer. It includes me, Raymer, Hodnett, Little Stevie. It's kind of cool actually. All the wins that have come out of that trailer. So
now but
it still looks new from today.
Are y'all going to debut in PA at the Icebreaker, or are you going to go Florida side?
No travel. He don't travel. It will the Icebreakers. We'll worry about it when that time gets close. See what the weather's like.
Right.
Neither one of us need to go out race when it's 30 degrees out. You know what I mean? We'll probably run a show or two maybe at Lincoln beginning year before port opens. And then, we're just kind of pick and choose from that. There are weekends already we have planned off where we won't race at all. It's like me and him discuss it. there's so much. It's always a moving target, and so much involved with the weather. I mean, if we have a year like we had this year, where you lose basically all but 2 months of racing, you'll race a lot more than when you start racing. But right now, we're just kind of we're taking a kind of weekend by month type deal, as our schedule, and kind of go by there. A lot of it depends on, how fast we are out of the box. If we're pretty fast out of the box, we will feel like we don't need to race every week, and we're still ready for the big shows. But if we're not fast, we need to race to get fast. So, we'll just kind of play by ear. But we'll be racing all Pennsylvania mainly.
Well, and I assume when you say ready to, race the big races, that is winning. I feel like to be ready for an outlaw
Yeah.
show or a high limit race, that means you're pretty dominant when it's just PA competition.
Yeah, just basically you need speed. You need to have the speed to qualify, and we had that this past year in the 12. We up to the Touch 50, I was the only guy to run top 3 in all the big shows at Port up to the Touch 50. So that's all high limit stuff, and that's with Anthony there. That's with all. So we had a lot of speed this year, and it showed. So it's that's what we need to work on with the 8. Make sure we come out of the box with speed, and I'm excited, and I think we're going to be good. But it's still, you just don't know until you unload it and see how fast it is.
Right. Well, one question for you get out of here. I mentioned Gary Wright earlier. He apparently was an amazing golfer. What's the correlation between good golfers and good sprint car drivers? And it seems like there is. If you have a sprint car driver who's really good at golf, he's usually elite in the sprint car. Is there a true correlation, or is this just happenstance?
I would say the only thing maybe that would help with that is patience. And trying to, and in racing, you lose more than you win. So you learn to forget about the bad night pretty quick.
So you're saying the bad
golf
stroke.
Kind of same way you forget about that bad. Yeah, patience. I mean, golf's a very testing game. Very testing game. I never actually, when I raced against Gary, I really wasn't playing golf at that time, and my understanding is he was a pretty damn good golfer. So he was a hell of a racer too. So it's I was fortunate enough to race with him, against him down in Florida mainly every year for the longest time, and he was really, really good racer.
But yeah, I just I heard that you're into the golf too, and it just seems like those that are good at it, they're really good on the racetrack. I didn't know if there was a correlation you noticed.
Yeah, other than you just have patience. The highs and lows, just like racing. You don't get too up and don't get too down, and just move on to the next shot. I mean, to me, that's kind of the difference between the two. That's how they are. You just you have a bad night at racing, the next race will come pretty soon. I mean, so you can get ready for that and forget about the bad one.
Right. Or a bad lap.
In golf, that's everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
In golf, that's everything. That's the hardest part about golf is you're going to hit bad shots. You just have to kind of take your medicine and move on with it.
Right. Okay.
And really the thing about golf is you don't want to make it worse than what it really is.
Right.
So that's kind of the patient thing and all.
Right. Okay. Well, I was just curious. I feel like I've kept you up past your bedtime now. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody. The wife is like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, she's used to this, so.
Oh God. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I didn't know if you would. I mean, I don't know what kind of text you're going to get tomorrow.
I can tell you this much, Chaz. I can tell you this much. I would have never done it 2 years ago or so.
That's good, right? I mean, Tony came on, and now you're on.
Well, just being honest with you. Your show a couple years ago, I would never be part of that.
Oh, it's still fun. You just got to ride the cushion. I ride the cushion on here.
but you're more. How should I say this? Less conspiracy stuff and more about the sport.
Well, we didn't bring up Candace Owens, and I'm not doing it now. But no, hey man, the conspiracy stuff's still out there. It is what it is. If you can't, if nobody else, it's just like the tires and all this other stuff and the safety. I mean, and I still advocate for the safety stuff, but if they're not going to care about it, then why care about it yourself? You know, why waste the time? But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on, and I get what you're saying in a way. Are you going to PRI or anything, or what do you got planned until next year?
Yep. No, we head out to PRI this week and be out there for a couple of days, and then come back and just go back to start working on some more race car stuff. We've been working, more or less every day since I left the 12 car on stuff, trying to get stuff ready, get stuff ordered, figuring out the different stuff I need over what they had there before, or the direction I want to go compared to where they were at. And we just keep working, just trying to get prepared.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. I'll be at PRI too. It's my first time to go out there in about 3 years. The rest have been to Australia and stuff. I'm surprised they ain't paid you a bunch of money to come over there and golf somewhere in Perth or something.
I had an opportunity years ago. Well, there's some nice courses over there.
Well, yeah, there's beaches. There's got to be a course.
I had an opportunity years ago. Yeah, there's really nice courses over there. I had an opportunity years ago and just, didn't. I mean, I'm talking probably 30 years ago, and just didn't seem right to go at the time, and I just never really.
Hold on. Are you saying you would accept a Perth ride for the High Limit Invitational right now? I mean, I have a pretty high Australian audience. Would you right now? Would you go? I mean, we can make this happen in 2 days, easy.
I would think about it. Depends on what it was and all. I mean, that's the thing about with me now, Chase, is I'm not just going to hop in any ride to go. You know what I mean? If it's something I thought I could be competitive in and have a shot, that's different. But no, I definitely think about stuff.
I mean, it's at the end of the month. We still have a couple weeks. I mean,
they'll say that ain't that far away. Yeah, that ain't that far away.
It's only a plane ride away. I mean, it's not very far.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 1 or 2 weekends or something.
Only 20-some hours.
Yeah, only. It is a horrible plane ride. I will have to say that. But you're saying that the right ride came along, end of the week, said, hey, would you drive this? Good equipment.
I would think about it.
You would? Wow.
I would.
They're dropping the ball. They're dropping the ball. I mean,
my passport's up to date and ready to roll.
Mine is too. Oh my God. I'll have to make it a package deal. So now I'm your Jerry Maguire. This is what's happening.
Oh, okay.
You're Rod Tidwell. You got to score the touchdown if we get you over there now.
Okay.
See, you don't believe me. I make things happen. All right. That's hilarious that they haven't asked you. That's a big drop of the ball. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. All that oil money over there, that's a big drop of the ball. Big drop. Anyway, well, thanks for coming on the show. Maybe we'll say hi at PRI.
No problem, Chaz.
Breaking news there with Donny and the 8 car. Hopefully it all works out.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be over there to see if it goes one way or the other at some point this year. But thanks for coming on the show. It means a lot.
All right. No problem. See you, Chaz.
Bye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Legendary Lance Dewease. What are you people in the chat saying? Probably only 1 or 2 of you in there talking. Lance Down Under beats the High Limit. That's what that's what I'm saying. Sprint car racing needs Saudi money. Western Australia is Saudi money. Guys, Lance is in the top 10 best sprint car drivers in the world. I mean, hard to deny that fact. How? I got to say this. I got to say this. How is Lance Dewease, since he called me Chase there at the end? It is hard for those Amish people to say "as" at the end. It just slips. Him and his horse and buggy. His number 8 buggy, by the way, this year, not the 12 buggy. Oh, I'm just playing, Lance. How in the hell has Lance Dewease not received a Perth ride offer for the high limit down under? How has this not happened? There it is. Mahalik just said it. I can see the newspaper headline. Local Amish man wins sprint car race in Australia. That's exactly what I'm saying. That is so mean. And that Mahalik guy is from Pennsylvania. That's so mean for you to say that about your own people. I make jokes about Amish, but they make damn good potato salad, damn it. That's why I do it. I mean, because he's from PA, exactly. But how in the world has Lance Dewease not had an offer? This may happen. This is going to happen. I think I actually know a crew that has the funding to make it happen. And they don't have an American driver in their car. They don't have an American driver in their car. Wow. I'm going to make it a package deal. Golf course at least twice a week. Why can y'all not? The headline of Lance Dewease joining, like, it's actually good that he hasn't had a ride yet because they've already announced all the American drivers coming. But then out of nowhere, 2 weeks before the event, bam, Lance Dewease, PA, racing legend is going to come. That would be the bigger news all on its own. That sounds good. Anyways, what else sounds good? Watching the rest of this Monday Night Football game in peace without having to deal with you people. I don't know about the CJB Donny shot stuff. We'll have to talk about it on the show tomorrow. We're going to go live the same time as Jeremy Elliott. We're taking all of his crowd. We're doing it all. We're taking over. Jeremy's Tuesday night show, I'm going live right over it. We'll have to talk about that another time anyways, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to mix the two episodes. I know we got to talk about Donny now. Oh, God. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Lance Dewease once again for coming on the show. I think it was a good one. I think. We'll see what happens. Will we be getting Lance, the PA carriage across the pond? Oh, my. If Tanner Holmes and Caleb Montgomery can go to New Zealand, Lance Dewease can go to Australia. I don't understand how this doesn't happen. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. As always, be sure to subscribe, and we will catch y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in, ladies.